The world where the MC lived was destroyed. Everyone had to fight against monsters to survive, and it was like that throughout his entire life. He was already tired, with huge piles of lifeless monsters around him. He kept finishing off the monsters, and for months, it stayed that way until those months turned into years. In the end, 10 years passed as if they were nothing. With a single sword, he cut down every monster that appeared before him and was never afraid. Until finally, the final boss appeared with his colossal size. The monster commanded him to give up, since, in the end, the whole world had already knelt before the chaos. He did not let himself be intimidated by that, and the monster thought it was a waste of talent since he could become one of his elite soldiers. The MC found that funny, told him not to make him laugh, and charged straight toward the boss. The monster made the first strike and he dodged, but at the same time hit the mutant's fingers, who looked closely at the hero, who also stared back, but with an attack coming in his direction, and due to the speed, he got hit anyway. The monster finished his attack saying to resist as much as he wanted, since in the end, he was nothing more than an insect. The MC was wounded in various places, and retreated since he was thrown far away. He gathered momentum, and once again charged toward the mutant. However, this time, the boss just raised his arm and landed an extremely powerful blow that threw the hero hard to the ground. The MC, already badly injured, looked at that colossal monster and noticed a precious stone in the chain around his neck. He kept staring at it and positioned himself to throw his sword at the same time the monster prepared to attack. He gathered all the energy he had and threw the sword with all his strength, making a huge hole in the monster's chest just as the hero was hit by the attack. But before it landed, the precious stone shattered and the boss screamed furiously since his necklace had been completely destroyed, and all he could do was scream in disbelief that it happened, and his body was erased from existence. The MC, injured, just lay on the ground bleeding heavily. He looked up and saw a shooting star and thought it was beautiful. After that, we see someone walking. It is the incarnation of the MC. His name is Dojun. Upon arriving at a place with a siren, he is informed that it is Portal B and the rank is C. In addition, it is necessary to scan the hero registration number to identify him. However, the MC just kept walking and stood in front of the gate. Then, he raised his foot and kicked hard, completely destroying the entrance. Because of that, an alert was issued warning that an unidentified hero had forced entry into the gate. He looked up unconcerned and entered the forest. While walking, someone caught his attention. It was a group of people asking if he was lost or something like that. The leader asked him to follow so they could get out of there. He just remained silent, and the big guy whispered that the boy's clothes were strange, and they didn't even believe he was a hero. After all, he knew that heroes usually wore anything, but those clothes were completely weird, not to mention the fact that he was carrying a huge backpack. They wondered if the boy even knew what was going on there. Dojun replied that he knew what they were talking about and had just arrived. One of them comments that he already knows what kind of kid that is, and the captain doesn't like it at all, since he even imagines why the MC got in there, and explains that if he wants to hunt in that place like shown on TV and in the games, he is definitely wrong, since he needs to go through training to get the hero license, because that is a rank C portal, and anyone else must start at a rank F portal. At that moment, the MC interrupts, saying he knows the guy is trying to help, but warns he didn't ask for anything in the first place. Hearing this leaves the three in shock, to the point of asking if the guy is crazy and wants to lose his life. Because of that, he just walks away while the group says to let him be, since he will get hurt on his own for not listening to them. After walking a bit, he looks to the side and comes face to face with a giant orc. The monster growls at him and approaches to attack. However, he, with his confident look, simply disappears, causing the attack to hit the ground. The orc is confused about what happened until he appears above, and with a single strike explodes the monster's head, making it vanish from existence. With that, only the body remains, falling hard to the ground. The MC kneels, imagining nothing has changed. With the orc already defeated on the ground, he bends down and picks up the dropped sword. He becomes thoughtful for a moment and goes toward the monster again, beginning to cut it open until he finally grabs the stone he was looking for. It is a low-quality magic stone. He imagines that if it were in his past life, he wouldn't even look at this item. After putting it in his backpack, he notices movement nearby until several emerge and charge to attack. Dojun dodges the first, and holding the stone firmly in his hand, throws it at one of the orc's heads, exploding it instantly. Then, he throws his backpack on the ground and prepares himself since the fight will be intense. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, the group of hunters is walking. The girl says she found the MC weird and worries since he is new and could end up losing his life. Sianwu asks why she is worried until the leader comments that if the portal was really invaded, it means the elite agents of the portal control must be after the MC since that is a rank C portal. That's why he believes the elite agents are there. He turns and tells her to relax since nothing serious will happen if they don't attack any monsters. The group believes the MC must be trembling with fear in the middle of the forest, and that this fear will increase even more when the agents find him. However, the reality is different, since it is the monsters who are trembling until they get punched in the face. Another orc strikes back, but he simply disappears at high speed, appearing immediately behind the monster and landing a powerful kick, finishing another one. Then he picks up another sword and moves forward, as he will get 3 more magic stones. The day passes and Dojun continues walking with his backpack full. He believes the hunt went well since he got 12 low-level magic stones and 16 mid-level ones. At that moment, an elite agent appears and shouts that he found the target. The MC turns and comes face to face with 4 people standing in front of him. One of the agents says they are the portal control team and asks him to show his hero registration card, since if he doesn't have one, he will need to accompany them. Dojun doesn't understand what portal control means, and the man, releasing his aura, just orders him to cooperate. He stares back and resumes walking, finding it annoying. The team leader notices the lack of cooperation and orders the MC to be handcuffed, warning once more that if he doesn't cooperate, they will need to use brute force. Then one of them grabs his arm and says that if he resists and gets hurt, it won't be their responsibility. However, Dojun pulls his arm away with his other hand, terrifying the agent with such strength. Then, with a serious look, he tells them to stop bothering him. The agents realize the danger and draw their weapons. The MC soon realizes that those are rank 4 mana seals, something that would definitely work well against orcs, but not against him. For that reason, he twists the agent's arm and calmly gives his final warning, saying that if they don't want to get hurt, they should leave him alone. The agents attack, but Dojun blocks both weapons and dodges the head from one of the punches. Then, he prepares his leg and lands a knee strike right on one of their backs, and at the same time a precise kick to the other stomach, throwing him far away. The redhead, who was just observing, begins to worry about what he just saw. He fixes his gaze on the target, but notices it is disappearing, getting confused by what's happening, but it's too late since he receives a punch straight to the pit of his stomach that forces him to retreat. The MC calls his attention and asks if it's not a problem not to have a registration. The agent replies that it isn't, as long as he doesn't do anything illegal in the portals. However, he asks about the Rift Zone, leaving the agent scared. These are passages to other worlds where bizarre monsters appear, opening throughout the globe. The byproducts obtained from hunting monsters are used as new energy sources. For this reason, the places where the country completely controls the passages and confines the monsters are precisely the gates. And the places that have not yet become portals are called Rift Zones. Dojun questions that regardless of which portal it is, they will keep hunting him, using the excuse that he invaded a forbidden place or something like that. The agent agrees, saying that if an unregistered hero enters a portal without authorization, the portal control teams are automatically notified, and those closest will take action. He assures that it's not as easy to enter a Rift Zone as it is to enter a portal. The MC approaches almost instantly, questioning what should be done in this case. The agent, seeing that his head is about to be grabbed, can only think that he knew it would be problematic, and that he should have spoken to headquarters from the beginning, and with a single move, he is thrown far away. Dojun gets upset since he didn't think those guys were a big deal, and so he simply leaves, being insulted with every possible name by the agent. Now, a little about his death in his past life. He broke the stone that was in the monster's chain, and the monster screamed that it shouldn't have happened. He imagines hearing a loud scream at the end while losing consciousness and being sucked by something. He believed it was death since he thought it was coming to get him. Then, with his eyes closed, he slowly opens them until he realizes he is in a kind of freefall and questions who the person in front of him is. The boy introduces himself as Dojun and says he is losing his life. Because of that, he only asks that his wish be fulfilled so he can leave peacefully, but the MC just refuses, leaving him downhearted by this quick answer. He warns that he regrets nothing and that he fought desperately for 10 years only to be betrayed by his comrades in the end, and his land was being destroyed and all his friends lost their lives as well as his family, and he assures that even with all his efforts, in the end, life means nothing, and so he asks if the MC doesn't also feel the same way. Dojun responds that even though his life ends this way, he hoped that his grandmother and sister, who are still on Earth, wouldn't live like that. The MC sighs and says it's okay, asking him to say what he wants. He gets excited and tells his wish. Back to the present, there is the digital complex of Gasan, Gainshun in Seoul. It is currently called the Hero Complex, as the exchanges of gate byproducts have become far more numerous than information technology companies. The MC kept walking among the people until finally reaching his destination. The employee greets him, and Dojun says he would like to sell some magic stones. The man says he is in the right place, as they can buy them for the highest price in all of Korea. The magic stones are placed on the table, and the man is startled because not even the monster dirt on the stones was cleaned. Then he says he will analyze them and asks him to wait a little, offering coffee while he waits. He says it's all the same and starts drinking his coffee while the stones are analyzed. The buyer counts 12 low-level magic stones, 16 medium-level, and 5 high-level, and asks if he is aware of the 40% fee they have. After calculating, he says they will keep a total of 5,460,000 wons. Dojun goes to the counter and asks what kind of nonsense this is, since he did all the work and they still want to charge a 40% fee. The employee laughs and suggests the client doesn't understand how it works, since they usually charge a 45% fee and are giving the best possible offer. He says if he doesn't want to sell, he can just take his things and leave, since no matter where he goes, he won't find a better offer. The MC says he will do that and starts gathering his stones. At that moment, the man grabs his arm and says he needs to pay for the estimate they made, besides the coffee not being free, with 300,000 wons for the estimate request and 10,000 for the coffee, adding that they also used a very expensive cloth to clean the stones. So the total bill came to 350,000. The MC pulls his arm away, saying he has no money at the moment, and the man with an evil smile says the store has some rank C heroes protecting the place, and immediately calls them. The men enter the room and ask why they were called, and if someone is causing trouble again. They stare at each other for a moment. The buyer is shocked at what he just witnessed, and then one of the guards is thrown onto him with a single punch from Dojun, finishing off all 3. After that, he starts walking and slams his hand on the counter, cracking it, while saying that because of this, the fee will be 1% and assures they will now negotiate fairly. With everything settled, he leaves, and when he arrives home, he throws a block of money on the table, leaving his grandmother and sister surprised. The old woman asks what money that is, and he, not knowing what to say, makes up that he lent the money to a friend to open a business and it ended up succeeding. She finds that strange and asks since when he has any friends. Dojun feels embarrassed and says that person is from where he grew up, and they were very close at the time. She doesn't fully understand what that means, but just replies that she understands. Then the little girl asks if they are now rich by any chance. He replies yes, and that they will live well from that moment on. Onyoung starts running around the room happily celebrating being rich. The MC watches this and remembers Dojun's wish that all he wanted was for his grandmother and sister to live well in a safe house. He reflects that before he could respond, the boy simply disappeared. Then when he woke up, his new self was in that body. He knows that a house in the safest place in Korea costs 110 billion wons, and knows he is not obliged to follow his old body's wish, and also knows that if he can recover his strength, getting that money wouldn't be anything difficult. Rifts, portals, monsters, and everything in that place were destroyed because being the god of the sword in his other world, that place is like an amusement park. However, he is frustrated since he hasn't been able to recover even 10% of his strength. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door calling for him. The MC gets up and asks them to stay there since he will see who it is. After opening the door, he faces 2 people. They warn him that it is time to pay back the money he borrowed, making it clear that it is 48 million. The MC breathes deeply, knowing from his memories that those are the loan sharks from whom his former body borrowed money before losing its life. And he knows the amount he borrowed is 5 billion to pay his grandmother's hospital bill, and the guys increased it 10 times more. The 2 continue asking if he got the money from the portals. However, Dojun is not very patient and starts by landing a punch on the big guy's mouth, leaving the blonde terrified by it. He questions what he is doing, and the MC, with a scary look, says he has already given 9 million so far, which makes them drink the money. The frightened man asks if he is really Dojun, but he, with his fist clenched, tells them to inform their boss that he will visit him soon, and beats the 2 up. Hours later, he goes to the mall, and after entering the teddy bear store, his sister is amazed, asking if she can really have one of those. He replies that she can, and that she can have whatever she wants. Then he thinks that he has the memories of the former Dojun, which made him start having feelings, and even knowing it is just sympathy, he knows Dojun was kind to her, even being a half-sister. He wants at least to protect that feeling. Onyoung chooses one and asks if she can take it. He sees she chose a very simple bear and hands her a bigger one, saying that, as he said, she can take whatever she wants. This makes the little girl extremely happy. After that, they go to eat, and while having their meal, the MC hears someone whispering his name. It was a woman accompanied by 2 men. She asks what is going on since he is dressing better, although still ridiculous, and asks who the little girl is, implying he got involved with someone like his mother. Hearing this makes Dojun extremely furious, creating a heavy atmosphere around, and Eun-young only wonders who the woman is. He tries to control himself, and the woman, still there, looks at his sister and asks her name. Eun-young answers, and the woman says she understands, adding that looking at her clothes, they must remain poor like his mother. Seeing that the MC does not respond, She asks if the cat ate his tongue. She realizes there will be no answer, and so turns to the little girl and asks if she knows the meaning of the word bitch. Dojun becomes increasingly irritated and says she is a woman as ugly as an orc and is looking for trouble. She turns around without understanding if she heard correctly and realizes she made him furious. The MC knows that the former Dojun was a bastard child who lived in poverty, and at 7 years old his mother died and he had to move to his biological father's house. He lived there for 10 years being neglected, and after his father's second wife had a son, he himself was completely rejected. He was abandoned again until he ended up at his maternal grandmother's house and lived with his half-sister, whom he had never seen before. With all these memories of his former body's owner, he wonders how he managed to endure all that until now, but knows it is okay since he will deal with everything. He goes to the woman and says, it's been a long time since he left her house, but she is still disgusting, and both her personality and appearance are worse than trash. Besides being as dumb as an animal, he emphasizes that this is why she walks around with an inferiority complex, bothering pretty girls, and still wanting to annoy an innocent little girl who cares about her own brother, finishing by saying she is a rotten person. These words draw the attention of the people around since he spoke out loud, and this makes the woman completely furious to the point of asking what he said. Suddenly, a beautiful woman appears, saying she hasn't seen Dojun for a long time. The chubby woman runs calling for her mother and crying, asks if she heard everything he said. She, furious, tells her to be quiet and questions how she can be so rude. Then she smiles and asks Dojun how he has been and that he should have visited her someday. The MC knows that she is the fakest of all since she was the one who tormented Dojun the most over the years. So he interrupts her saying she is disgusting, also asking who she thinks she is to speak so familiarly and tells her to go to hell. The woman is left speechless and just turns to leave. As she leaves, she wonders if that is really the Dojun she knows since he was a boy who always lowered his head and ended up getting beaten for no reason, and everyone leaves. The MC realizes the mood was completely ruined, so he calls his sister to leave. He reflects that the old Dojun who endured everything silently no longer exists, and therefore everyone should get used to it. After that, inside a moving car, the chubby woman asks why they left, since they should have finished Dojun off at that restaurant. The woman calls the secretary's attention and asks why Dojun is still alive. He gets worried seeing his boss is serious and replies that the report said they left the boy in front of a portal. She starts screaming, not understanding why he is still alive after being left in front of a portal. The girl gets scared by the conversation and asks what it means to be dead. Her mother stays silent, her daughter starts yelling what she did and if she tried to take Dojun's life. At that moment, the mother asks if she likes him, making the girl blush, saying it's not that, but only because if her grandfather and father find out, it will be a big problem. Hiju grabs her daughter's face and, furious, tells her to shut up because she will take care of everything. Lucia is terrified seeing her mother's expression. All the woman could think was that she will end the MC no matter what. 10 years ago, a rift zone appeared and the monsters that emerged started finishing off people. The world was in complete chaos, but with the appearance of heroes, the chaos was quickly resolved, and the core stones inside the monsters served as a new energy source, and countries focused on turning the rifts into controlled portals. So, the entire industry is based on heroes and portals. The conclusion is that to make money, you just need to become a hero. The MC arrives at his destination and starts walking until he enters the establishment. He is greeted by a man smoking who asks who the hell the boy is. After finding out who he is, he puts out his cigarette and asks if he really has the nerve to show up there after messing with his gang. Dojun says that the more he thinks about it, the more he believes he messed up, so he wants to be compensated for the mental and physical damage they caused. The man becomes thoughtful since he knows the MC was just an idiot, but suddenly changed and is full of attitude against strong guys. And judging by how he took down some of his gang members, he believes he must have awakened. The man stands up and says that apparently the boy achieved something cool and changed, and asks if by any chance he knows what happened to other idiots who also awakened and showed up there full of arrogance. At that moment, several other men appear and approach the MC. The leader warns that they all kept complaining and ended up in rank D, and he himself has several rank D heroes there to shut the others up. The MC, who was silent, tells the guy to sit down, making it clear they haven't finished talking yet. One of the henchmen asks how he dares to talk like that, and he, without much talk, punches the guy in the face, throwing him to the other side of the room. Then he hits the second and the third, asking if they are nothing more than loan sharks, since he believes they also know how to forge IDs. While beating up the gang, he says he will need more money and therefore will need a fake ID. The last gang member tries to land a punch, but it's useless since the MC dodges and attacks, ending up knocking out all the members. The MC orders a perfect fake ID without any mistakes and makes it clear he wants it by the next day. Everyone in the room is terrified, and the leader tries to understand what is happening since the power he just witnessed is not rank D, and he considers if it's rank C, although he really believes he might even be rank B. Dojin asks if he's not going to answer, and the leader shrinks, saying he understood. The MC approaches, saying he has more to say, and with a scary expression asks if by any chance that bitch Hiju sent them to kill him. The man starts sweating cold without saying anything, but this only makes Dojin squeeze his clavicle until he screams in pain like crazy and finally admits yes, she ordered him to kill him. He explains the woman asked to pile debt on the MC until he couldn't take it anymore to the point of taking his own life. The MC thinks about it and asks what he means by taking his own life, since they threw him in front of a portal. The leader, trembling, asks what he means by portal and says he has no idea what he's talking about and even swears he's not lying. He keeps begging since he's telling the truth, and also comments that if he had died like that instead of simply taking his own life, the woman wouldn't even pay. The MC thinks about it since it makes sense and says the name Cheol Wu, warning that he wants all information about this guy by the next day since that is the name of the one who dragged him to the portal. He says this and leaves. Outside, he thinks all he wants is for his grandmother and sister to live in a safe place and guarantees that while he's there, he will do everything possible to make that happen. The next day, his card has already been delivered and he uses it to identify himself. The system warns that the hero registration was verified but says it's below the recommended rank and therefore warns him it may be dangerous and he should think carefully before entering. The MC thinks the loan shark was an idiot since he could have made a rank A ID. Anyway, he enters despite the alert warning several times that he is below the recommended level. That is the Bomsium Gate, Class B and Scale D, with tunnel-type terrain. The recommended level is A, and entry is not allowed unless in a group of 2 or more people. He knows that since it's a rank portal, fighting alone could be difficult, but since it's in a tunnel, it will be possible because it would only be difficult if it were a rank A portal. He walks for a moment and smiles, knowing he might end up encountering hundreds of monsters inside the tunnel. No sooner does he say that than the first one appears in front of him. He gets excited since he liked finding one right away, and even with the monsters charging at him, he manages to finish them off while collecting their stones. One of them opens its mouth, showing its long, venomous fangs. He is aware that it's the black-fanged snake that can cause paralysis with its venom. Because of that, he runs and, after positioning himself, unleashes several attacks on the monster until he splits it in half. He notices that the venom landed on his glove and laments it, as he basically threw 300,000 one away. Then he hears something and notices more snakes approaching. However, that's nothing, as he starts finishing them off one by one, with their goo being splattered in all directions until he finally defeats them all. He digs his claws into the snake and finds it strange that there's no magic stone. Only then does he reflect that, if it's like in his old world, the drop rate for magic stones from the black fang snake is still 3%. Because of that, he continues on his way, as it means he'll have to finish off at least 100 more of them. After reaching another room, he comes across skeletons on the ground, and looking ahead, realizes he's finally facing the boss. He throws his backpack to the ground, confessing that he wasn't sure which path to take, but it turned out fine, and he charges in for the attack since he wants to finish quickly and leave. After landing a punch, he notices something strange, as his attacks weren't strong enough, and due to that distraction, the snake uses its tail to strike and throws him with full force against the wall. Then it charges in to devour him, but he jumps back in time and, after repositioning himself, charges in again, landing another powerful punch. This attack makes him conclude that this monster is on a much higher level than the ones in the tunnel and has much tougher skin. He tries to think of what to do and laments that if he had his full strength, that snake wouldn't be more than an insect. Then he looks to the side and sees a sword stuck in the ground from heroes who lost their lives. He observes it for a moment and picks it up, as despite being worn out, he has no other option. Besides, he knows it doesn't matter how old a sword is, since what matters is who's holding it. The boss wastes no time and charges in, but Dojin jumps and, already in the air, tells it to consider it an honor to be finished by him. Then he grips the weapon firmly and delivers his powerful slash that lights up the entire hall. After this attack, he stays silent for a moment and realizes that even though he defeated the boss, the sword also broke, and it would have been bad if he had missed. He goes to the monster's body and starts checking for items, and removes one of its fangs, as despite being small, it can be used as a sword and, if properly refined, can even be useful. The MC doesn't complain, as the job pays much better than a normal one anyway. Having finished everything, He leaves the portal and realizes it's already nighttime, so he ended up spending more time than he thought. He thinks he needs to recover his strength soon, and he's also happy that his colleagues weren't there to see him like that. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man shows the stones he obtained during his mission. The buyer confesses that he got many high-quality magic stones and says the fee is 40% as usual. The man is outraged, questioning if the fee isn't too high since he is a loyal customer and wants to know if he could get a discount. The buyer, counting the notes, replies that their fee is the lowest in the market and adds that the basic fee at the portal center alone is 5%. And since they don't record the transactions, they don't even charge an additional fee. He hands over the money, saying they consider all these things so heroes can get the best possible profit. The man starts counting the money, agreeing with what was said, and asks the buyer what the hell happened to his face since it's all beaten up. Mark says a crazy guy came in and hit all the guards, and he himself got caught in the middle. The hero says he understands and comments that they probably let their guard down since the guards are rank C, and also suggests looking for guards based on skill, not rank, since ranks are just a government convenience. But in the end, what matters is skill. Then he says there is a difference between a guard who just got his license and a hero who hunts monsters and risks his life. The seller gets fed up hearing this, just wanting the guy to leave instead of babbling. The man says they may not have known each other for long, but asks to be called if needed and leaves. Passing by the MC who was arriving at that moment, Mark panics seeing who just came in and starts shouting to the hero that the one responsible for the damage on his face is the boy in front of him. The man stops before leaving and asks if he's sure, saying he's tall and even handsome but doesn't seem capable of that. Anyway, he starts intimidating the MC, asking why he caused trouble there since a true hero can't be beating innocents, and asks if he doesn't know his duty is to protect civilians. The seller gets excited knowing the guy with the hood is a veteran hero of 7 years. However, Dojin turns around and tells him to shut up and get out of there. This makes the man furious and Mark happy since things are about to get rough. The MC asks if he wants to take revenge or something. He gets angrier until his veteran intuition kicks in, aware that the main cause of heroes' deaths isn't monsters, but fights with other heroes. Because of that, he turns and says he's leaving since he's a bit busy. Now only Dojun and Mark remain inside the shop, and he asks if there's anything else to complain about. All that's left is to hang his head until the MC throws his backpack full of magic stones. He starts calculating the amount and can't believe it since there are many high-level magic stones, and he doesn't know who the hell that person is. He starts adding everything and, looking at the stones, says it totals 150 million wands. Dojun imagines he hunted all day, and the stones are only worth 150 million and tells him to pay quickly. Mark says he still needs to deduct the fees, but sees the sinister look in front of him and wonders if he said something wrong. The MC smiles, saying there is really 1% fee to deduct, and asks for 148 million wands after that deduction. The boy gets furious wanting to punch the MC since the commission is 40%, but that's only in his head since he's not crazy to do that, and just says that for transactions above 100 million, he needs his superior's approval. Dojun, with a serious face, orders to get the approval quickly. The seller starts fiddling with his phone to contact his superior to explain what's going on, but without noticing the phone is taken from his hand, and Dojun, losing patience, tells his superior to send the money immediately if he hasn't understood. The man shouts through the phone that he understands and tells to return the phone to the employee. However, what he does is throw the cell phone against the wall and still says it's to get the money quickly, since, as he heard, the superior said he had understood. Mark is shocked seeing the destroyed cell phone beside him and immediately grabs all the money from the magic stones. With that resolved, the MC leaves saying it's always very good to do business there. However, the seller is upset since nothing good happened. 10 minutes pass and someone enters the shop. It was the owner of the establishment asking why the phone wasn't answered and wanting to know what strange call that was earlier. Mark just tells his boss he's quitting and, showing the condition of the cell phone, says he can't take it anymore. The owner of the place looks fixedly ahead in the boy's direction, immediately takes his phone, and calls his emergency contact, saying he needs them to show up at the shop immediately. The woman replies she understood and keeps walking, being an attraction to all because of her beauty, leaving everyone amazed. She doesn't waste time and soon arrives at the shop and enters to be attended. Mark is shocked since he recognized her instantly. She asks him not to react like that since she's an ordinary person. However, all he can imagine is that she is the 4th rank S heroine of Korea, and although he knows little, he knows she is the niece of the shop's boss and doesn't understand what she's doing there. She soon asks if there is a hero causing problems in sales and giving her uncle a headache, and, after sitting down, asks to hear everything that happened. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Dojun is meditating in his yard. He imagines he has been hunting all day and hasn't made much money and knows he needs to start entering rank S portals soon. For that, the most important thing he needs to do is recover his power. However, unlike the world of his past life, the atmosphere in that place is scarce. And even though he keeps absorbing all the time, he thinks it will take about 3 years. Then he thinks it would be interesting to get great equipment, but knows that, unfortunately, in that place, even junk equipment costs way too much. At that moment, he feels something and immediately yells to his sister, who, looking to the side, is grabbed by him, asking her to go inside immediately. He rushes in, and his grandmother asks what happened. A strong tremor starts, and the little girl panics, asking if it is an earthquake. Dojun imagines it's not, since he is absolutely sure it is a rift forming. His grandmother, still confused, asks what is happening, and he just tells them not to go out, since it is dangerous outside at that moment, and on his own, he attacks the purple structure that formed. At the same time, at the Hero Association in the metropolitan city of Seoul, people call the leaders saying they detected a new rift in the district. He thinks it's annoying since a new rift formed in 63 days and shouts to activate the White Lion Guild since the location is in Mapo, also calling any hero nearby. Then he asks exactly where the rift appeared and they reply it was in the garden of a house. He thinks it's annoying since it could be a headache, because if any civilian enters the rift, no one else can enter until they come out. And that's not the worst, since he also knows that if someone dies inside, a monster wave will emerge for the next 10 days, and if that happens, the entire region will be destroyed. Because of that, he asks to check if anyone entered the rift, and the blonde guy answers that a young man named Dojun entered the portal minutes before, according to the elderly woman who reported it, and he did so trying to save her and the little girl who was in the house. They conclude that means a civilian entered instead of a hero, and so he asks what the probability of a monster wave happening is. The staff responds that in that case, the chance is 99.9%. This scares everyone since in that scenario, it will be an unprecedented chaos. Elsewhere, a stack of papers is thrown on the table, and Hiju receives the news that Dojun awakened and says, "That doesn't make sense." The secretary responds that the boy has not yet been registered by the Heroes Association, but even so guarantees that he awakened. She becomes furious and asks what the hell the loan shark did, since everything indicates that she herself should have finished the MC and does not understand how things got so complicated, since the loan shark did nothing and still kept the money. Still irritated, she orders him to talk to Chiolwoo to order him to finish Dojun at once, and if he does not do it, the guy must pay 10 times more than she paid to carry out the service. The bald guy says it will not be necessary, since he learned that a rift appeared right in Dojun's garden, and also confirmed that the boy entered the rift and it will even be announced on the news. She asks if that means they will never see the boy again. He answers yes, but she is not so relaxed about that and therefore orders him to keep an eye until they are sure. Inside the rift, the MC finds himself in a forest. He thinks it is hard to believe, but that is the Patisua forest, which he always used to go to as a child. He realizes this because the forest with its big trees and grass, along with the abundant mana in the air and even the wind, absolutely everything is the same. Knowing this, he looks in a direction, and after walking a bit, it realizes it is as he thought, since he reached the world tree. He knows that it is an ancient spiritual tree full of high purity mana. After touching the tree, he thinks that in his world that tree was destroyed because it was burned and the mana flow was altered, but he realizes that in this place it remains alive and strong, and he does not know why, so he concludes that he might recover his power with that tree. Without thinking twice, he begins to meditate with the goal of absorbing as much mana as possible and restoring his former power. Time passes, and he does not lose focus. Days go by, and he even realizes that he ended up forgetting to eat or sleep, since he focused only on his breathing for 10 consecutive days. After nightfall, he opens his eyes, having felt the presence of some monsters. He realizes that the monsters are called Volcana, and were the ones responsible for burning the world tree in his past life. They start to advance, and all he imagines is that it would be very good if he had a water attribute sword. The monsters get closer and closer, and he prepares himself, saying it doesn't matter anymore because he will crush them all. Then, he stretches out his hand and releases his power after accumulating all that mana. The monsters begin to scream in pain, and he stays focused all the time. What he is doing is releasing his mana, since when releasing accumulated mana in the form of energy, it explodes. He thinks it has been a long time since he accumulated so much mana. The monsters start to channel power through their mouths and shoot it toward the MC, who only sees the energy approaching and being blocked by his natural barrier. He starts walking, saying the world tree is finally safe, and with a confident look, says he wants to see how much stronger he has become. He cracks his neck, and the volcano begins gathering energy again, but at the same moment, he appears putting his hand in the monster's mouth to stop the power from passing through, and even so, the monster fires with all its strength, but the attack explodes inside its mouth, making its body explode from the waist up and dropping a magic stone. Now he walks toward the other monsters, and with a smile on his face says that by killing those idiots, he might even get the inextinguishable ember. Then, excited, he starts attacking all the monsters since, as far as he remembers, the drop rate was high, and he wonders how many monsters he will be able to eliminate. His excitement is so great that he cannot stop hitting the mutants. After finally finishing, he sees a kind of golden coin among the dropped magic stones. He bends down and picks it up, knowing that it is the inextinguishable ember. The MC gets excited since he really managed to get his hands on that again, like in his past life, and a flame begins to arise in his hand. He sees that and can only think that it would be good if he could absorb more mana from the world tree, but he knows it is too much for his current body. So the most he can do is absorb that Ember E, changing the attribute of his mana to fire. After his whole body is covered in flames, as well as his mouth, he thinks that in his past life he didn't need to do this. So he didn't know it would take 10 minutes to absorb just one. He starts moving his arm to see how he feels, and notices more embers on the ground, deciding to absorb as many as possible. Outside, many people are watching the rift, along with numerous reporters. A man is irritated and says that because of a civilian, he can't enter the rift as it is blocked. Hyunwoo comments that he heard the MC only entered the rift to save his little sister who was nearby. However, the man insists it was just an excuse since there was a rumor that Dojun awakened and only for that reason entered without thinking. Hyunwoo asks what the guildmaster said, and he replies it was the usual, that they need to follow the manual. Hyunwoo mentions that apparently the rifts appeared simultaneously in the United States, China, United Kingdom, Turkey, and Switzerland, and as far as he knows, the guildmaster is busy because of that too, even though it's the first time he's seen something like this happen. Sungwoo is extremely irritated since only his group got screwed over by a delinquent who entered a rift on his own. He clenches his fist, saying some nobody shouldn't have acted so rashly, and promises to beat him when he shows up. The rift remains intact, and it is reported that 28 days have passed since it appeared, and the Hero Association declared that there will be a wave of level 1 monsters. So they ask everyone to prepare, as this is what will happen if the civilian who entered doesn't leave in 2 days. A man turns off the TV. This is Chung Seo, who asks if the person who appeared on TV is the damn Dojun. His secretary replies yes, as it was confirmed to be him. The leader asks if the boy will come out alive, and he replies that there's a 1% chance for a civilian to survive. However, hearing this only makes Chung Seob laugh, since they are calling Dojun a civilian, while in front of him are his team members completely injured by the MC. And so, he says the idiots at the association don't know shit as usual, and asks if the boy has awakened as he seems to have. Ingu says he's not sure what happened since the probability depends on the rank he has, so it's hard to judge without more information. Chang Xiub says he already knows, since being good at fighting and surviving a rift are different things. He also says the boy only has 2 family members, so they need to protect them. When the secretary asks what he will do, he, with a sinister smile, says if Dojun loses his life in the rift, he will sell their organs, and if he comes back alive, they will say they helped his family members, so he'll owe them one. Meanwhile, inside the portal near the world tree, the MC has not stopped absorbing mana and the inextinguishable ember. He wonders how much time has passed, since he managed to absorb all of them. Now he can use his mana with the fire attribute as he wishes, and his resistance to fire has also increased absurdly. He reflects that the fire attribute alone already puts him at a higher level than when he was called the Sword God. He places his hand on the tree and gives thanks, since both in the past and in this life it has helped him. Then he starts gathering the magical stones on the ground and says he probably won't see her again, but promises that if she is in danger again, he will protect her no matter the cost. Back in the world, already at night, Dojun finally leaves the rift. He notices there is no one within a 1-kilometer radius and wonders if the evacuation was because they expected the monster wave. However, in another direction, he senses an aura and runs to check what it is. He sees 2 people talking and starts thinking that by their clothes they are heroes waiting for the rift, and knows that if they catch him, it will be a problem. Then, he creates a ball of flames in his hand and throws it into the air. The fire heads toward a house and, upon impact, explodes, causing everything to catch fire. The 2 panic, asking what that noise was, and immediately start moving toward the fire. As they get closer, they realize the fire has already spread throughout the whole house, and they don't understand why the hell that place caught fire out of nowhere. The MC, who is watching from afar, imagines that his accuracy was very good and, looking at his hand, remembers his friend, since he was the strongest mage on the entire continent and would undoubtedly be amazed if he saw that power. At that moment, something catches Hyunwoo's attention, who, looking to the side, comments that the rift looks strange. It starts disappearing little by little, and the two keep running at full speed. As they get closer, they are shocked because the rift simply disappeared right in front of them. Meanwhile, the MC keeps walking, happy with the result he got. The next day, it was announced that the new rift that appeared in the Mapo district disappeared early in the morning, and that it had been exactly 29 days since someone entered the rift, and the Heroes Association, which was preparing for the waves of monsters, was surprised to witness such an unexpected phenomenon, which led them to start an investigation. They also announced the inexplicable fire that occurred near the place where the rift was. People gossiping whether the boy who entered the rift lost his life, thinking it was more than deserved, since one should not do that alone. The MC just walks by observing that conversation and continues on his way, imagining that if the rift disappeared, then no one else will be able to see the world tree, and, although he thinks it's a shame, he feels relieved. He finally arrives at the place he was heading to. Inside, two people are talking, and the smoker says that if the MC lost his life, then it's over for the old woman and the little girl. His colleague agrees and also comments that their boss, being a civilian, will make a lot of money. The smoker said the old woman doesn't have much to enjoy, but thinks the little girl will grow up to be pretty, and believes the boss is looking for something to do with her at that moment. At that instant, someone calls for them. It was the MC with his terrible aura, asking where their boss is. At that moment, a car stops in front of the place and a person gets out. It was Chang Seob, accompanied by his secretary. He laughs, saying that now that Dojun lost his life, he can sleep in peace, and asks what's on his schedule that day. Ingu checks his notes and says he has lunch scheduled with CEO Bark, and after that, nothing in the afternoon. He asks if that's serious, and orders to ask Madame Kang to visit him that night, besides arranging some new girls for him to have fun with. They start going up the stairs until they are shocked to see one of their subordinates getting beaten up. He freezes at what he's seeing since another subordinate was defeated in moments. He realizes who the person in front of him is, and the MC, with his evil look, comments that apparently a dog was messing where he shouldn't. Chang Xiaob can only tremble in fear before that aura. Dojun puts his feet on the table and asks if he has gone deaf. Chang Xiaob is on his knees while the MC is sitting until he orders him to bark, since he doesn't think a bastard like him should be treated as a human. He obeys and starts barking as if there's no tomorrow. Their subordinates stand with their backs turned, unable to do anything, just listening to what's happening. Dojun approaches and orders him to bark louder, and accuses him of pretending to be an ally, but as soon as he saw an opening, stabbed him in the back. Then, he gets closer and asks if he really thought he wouldn't know how to deal with an idiot like him. Chang Xiaob crouches immediately, begging for mercy, saying he will serve as a loyal dog from that moment on. Dojun kicks him in the mouth, throwing him backwards with his head on the floor. Then he calls the secretary and says he will be the new boss, ordering him not to work like a dog for a guy who isn't even human. He also says he will probably like getting rid of trash like Chang Xiu, and therefore gives permission to do so. The Four Eyes starts to sweat cold until he crouches down, warning that their boss has many connections, and that if he himself suddenly becomes the boss, he believes people will find it strange. Therefore, he asks to give the leader a chance. However, the MC questions why he is acting that way, since he knows he is an expert at putting people in barrels and throwing them into the oceans, or even crushing them in a junkyard. Then he assures that if he does not want to help, he himself will throw their leader into a portal to become monster food. Chang Xiao bows once again, begging for a chance, and saying he will work until the day he loses his life, and everyone keeps begging for that. Dojun finds it annoying, since it would definitely be better to cut that guy off to avoid problems in the future. He sighs and says he will see if he has become more emotional. Then he stretches out his hand to greet the leader, who becomes extremely happy for the chance. He apologizes for everything he did and assures he will serve very well, but soon he notices something strange and realizes his hand is on fire when grabbing the MC's hand. Dojun stares and warns that this will be the last chance he gets, and with a simple pull, he rips his hand off, turning it to ashes instantly. Chang Xiab screams wildly in pain, and the MC just looks back and gives a final warning, making it clear that if he sees anyone touching even a finger of his family again, everyone there will lose their lives. Then he orders to protect them responsibly 24 hours a day, or they will also die. With everything that happened, Dojun was officially considered missing along with the rift. The government, the Hero Association, and all kinds of newspapers and media are treating him as if he were already dead. He knows that if people find out he returned, he will only have problems, and imagines that soon Chang Xiub will find a new house, so he should prepare for the move. His sister is happy, eating a hamburger, and with a smile on her face says she is glad they are moving. The MC says she will be able to go to daycare with other children, and next year, he will also do something like that. However, the girl becomes depressed, which makes him desperate to ask what happened and if she does not want to go. Eun-young replies no, because the others tease her saying she has no father or mother. He gets irritated by that and says if she does not want to, she does not have to go since she can go straight to school the following year. She is happy to hear that and asks if it is true she does not have to go to daycare. He says yes, but angrily thinks he should send her to an elite private school since that way no one would bother her. Then he remembers moments before. In another place, the MC meets with the Four Eyes and asks if he by chance left a lady with a child in a motel and if he has any idea what he is doing. He, worried, replies that the motel is part of their company, so in terms of security, it is the safest place possible. Then the MC goes to his family, and his sister runs to him happy to see him. His grandmother takes his hand and says she is very happy to see him alive. The same goes for his sister, who could not stop crying saying she is glad to see him well. He watches that and smiles, saying everything is fine. Back to the present, the girl asks if by chance he's also a hero. Dojun asks if she would like him to be one, but she says no. He does not understand why, and she says she heard that a hero fights monsters and sometimes dies, and that is why she and their grandmother want to stay with him forever. Dojun hears all this and sighs, since that phrase, stay forever, was impactful. He imagines that even in his world he was the last to survive and lost everything fighting monsters all those years. However, he realizes that at the moment he has something precious he had forgotten. So in this world, he sees he can finally protect that small happiness. In another part of the city, at the Korea Hero Association, Taiwang, the association's founder, asks his employee if it is really impossible to find out anything. She apologizes and confirms, since they really found nothing. He says it's frustrating because if a rift can disappear so easily, it means it can also reappear out of nowhere. She responds that that's exactly it, and that this kind of variable is very dangerous and she doesn't understand how it didn't trigger a monster wave, since she believes it would have been easier. However, he orders her to speak carefully, since considering the people's safety, it was the best possible outcome. He is one of the 100 most respected heroes in the whole world. If he ran for president of Korea, he would easily win, and they say he could have conglomerates if he wanted. However, he is someone who doesn't care about the government or wealth, only about the people's safety and containing the rifts. He asks to take as much time as needed to investigate, and his secretary replies she understands and says that the lady who lived near the rift sold the house. He thinks that's cool and asks to make sure they offer a price well above market to be fair, and if he could offer some support for losing a family member, that would be good too. He goes to his computer and soon notices something, since he learned that the rifts appeared around the world at the same time, and that this is problematic. His secretary asks if by any chance the United States and China have managed to control them. He says the problem is the United Kingdom, since their best heroes are at other rifts. At that moment, a notification arrives, and he can't believe what he's seeing, since it's a worldwide alert that a monster wave occurred in the United Kingdom, still in the morning. The MC keeps walking through the city until he goes to his usual place where he sells his magic stones. He opens the door, and Mark says good morning, until he becomes desperate upon seeing who it is. Immediately, he starts yelling at his manager that this is the troublemaker. The owner closes the newspaper he was reading and stands up, asking if this is the person who abused their goodwill while he was away. Dojun replies that it's the perfect time for the owner to be there and says he has many magic stones to sell that day, so he wanted someone with more authority to handle it. He says this and throws his full backpack on the floor. The man sees this, imagining it must be full of low-level magic stones like last time, and says they won't do business with him anymore, so he asks him to leave. The MC asks why not. The establishment's manager says that a 1% fee is a big loss for the shop, and so they don't want to do business with that kind of person. Dojun laughs, warning they'll regret it, but the manager doesn't care and says there's no reason to continue talking, since only the association charges 5% fee, so none of that makes sense. Then he turns and tells him to leave and never come back. The MC goes to his backpack and dumps the magic stones inside, leaving both Mark and Janwoo shocked. You realize they are heroic magic stones that are worth any price they ask. The MC laughs and says that if they don't want them, it's no problem. This is a heroic magic stone. In Mexico, a famous drug scientist named Kurzman was breaking magic stones trying to create a drug. Things didn't go as planned, and he ended up activating its power and himself awakened as a hero. Since then, this type of stone became famous as an essential item to awaken heroes, and for that, it got that name. They look completely shocked, since it's a rare energy source and a luxury item. The MC says he will store everything and leave, but the manager changes his attitude, asking him to wait a bit. Mark, having nothing to do, starts cleaning the magic stones while Do-jun keeps drinking iced tea. Janwoo, trying to negotiate, asks if he doesn't think 0.5% is too low. He says if he doesn't like it, forget it. But the shop owner says that's not it. He was just curious why he changed it to 0.5%. He replies it's because he annoyed him. So immediately Janwoo bows, begging for forgiveness, saying he wasn't thinking clearly. The MC, without much talk, tells them to stop wasting time, since he wants the answer, if they will accept or not. Mark watches from afar, thinking the MC is an ignorant bastard. Janwoo replies that it's fine, and starts giving a long speech that was enough to make the MC turn away, warning that he will leave. The man begs him to do it for 9%, or they will suffer a loss. Then he asks for 8%, since his boss will kill him if he finds out. Next, he lowers it to 7% and says he can't go lower. But the MC says he never asked to lower it, so the new value is 6%. But he warns that this way it won't work. Mark just watches that humiliation, since Janwoo was already on his knees not knowing what else to do. Then, the MC says he is kind and will leave it at 1%. The man shouts, calling him a damn thief, but actually, that was in his mind, since he's not crazy enough to shout that to someone who got a heroic magic stone. Then the MC makes it more interesting by saying that to let them know, they have 7 more backpacks like that one. The two are shocked hearing this, and the manager shouts for Mark to run at the speed of light to get the contract. With everything settled, he receives 67 billion wons for the heroic magic stones. He reflects that if he continues like that, he will manage to buy the house that costs 110 billion. However, he knows it's not possible to get all that again with the portals, and all he wanted was to be able to enter a new rift. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing with an alert, and the manager asks if it's a monster wave. However, it was just an administrative alert from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs warning about what happened there. He is intrigued by this. Then, he said that useless and unskilled people are pathetic. He keeps walking, imagining that if it had been in another time, he would have run to the rift, no matter the country or association, but he is sure he will not live like this anymore. After that, he goes to a restaurant with his family for a banquet. His grandmother checks the menu and is shocked, since 100 grams of meat was costing 250,000 wons, and she thought that was too much. He just tells her not to worry, since he earned a lot of money on his last hunt. Eun-young watches the meat, and after bringing it to her mouth, her eyes shine, amazed because the taste is surprisingly good. Sunja stares at the juicy meat until the MC also looks and says he will want a rib, a steak, a sirloin, and pork belly. His grandmother is shocked by how much he ordered and asks if he didn't overdo it a bit since she doesn't know how they will eat it all. Do-jun, with a smile on his face, asks them to eat with their hearts that day, and, for that reason, they could eat well. She breathes deeply, not understanding the reason for that, until her granddaughter points to a piece of meat in her direction, asking her to eat it because it's delicious. She decides to try it since she has nothing to do and is amazed because it is indeed very good. Everyone continues eating and having fun. At that moment, Jo-yeon enters the restaurant and starts walking between the tables until she reaches the MC and calls him. She asks if they could talk a little, already stating that he is a hero. However, she is interrupted when he asks if she can't see that he is eating with his family, and if she has business to discuss, she should talk to him after he finishes the meal. She processes what she just heard and, irritated, wonders if he has no idea that she is Jo-yeon. Anyway, she replies that it's all right, not understanding how someone could talk like that, then goes to the waiting area. People can't believe it, seeing an S-rank heroine sitting and waiting, besides knowing she is easily one of the top 10 most beautiful heroines in the world. They whisper, wanting to know who is the person that would make her wait. Jo-yeon just stares fixedly, thinking that 2 months earlier, Do-jun was the first person to come out of a rift alive, and the rumors say he awakened inside the rift, but he was declared dead after the rift closed. She realizes the boy is living very well, and admits that he is someone who made her feel tense just with a look. She tries to deduce if he became an S rank in those 2 months, but she has, as an example, the magnate Kafmore, who took 5 years buying magic stones to reach S rank and only then awaken. She doesn't accept that a boy suddenly reached S rank, only believing he is someone with a unique ability or something like that. At that moment, the MC and his family start to leave the restaurant, and seeing this, Zhao Yan stands up, but another person steps in front, catching the MC's attention. It was Chill Wu, with his bizarre face, saying that it seems he wasn't crazy since it really is Dojin there, and asks how the hell he managed to crawl out of the rift. He approaches saying he knew he was a worm, but didn't want a cockroach right away. Zhou Yan can't believe it since, among all the people, it's precisely Chill Wu there, and she doesn't understand why. However, the MC just looks away and calls the S rank, asking if she wanted to talk about something. The big guy also looks to the side and sees that it really is Zhou Yan there and asks what the hell is going on. Dojun replies that he has something to do and asks her to help his family this time. She asks what kind of help, and he says to just call a taxi for them to go home, and then, with his intimidating look, says he will be busy since he remembered he forgot to collect a debt, leaving the big guy excited. Then, leaving the restaurant, Julian takes the grandmother and the MC's sister to the taxi and tells them not to worry and to come back safely. She says goodbye until the car finally leaves. Inside, a loud noise is heard, and it was Dojun with his hand raised since he just slapped Chielwoo right in the face, who becomes furious asking if he wants to die. However, the employee interrupts, asking for permission since they can't fight inside. He turns around pushing angrily and tells her to fuck off, which scares all the restaurant customers. Then, he starts shouting like a madman asking if Dojun wants to lose his life. But once again, the hand goes toward him, and the MC lands another solid punch that not only hits, but also throws him backward. The MC says he wanted to have a talk with him and asks if he was the miserable one who threw him into that portal and left him to die. So he guarantees they have a lot to talk about. Chielwoo laughs and says he has nothing to say to someone who was abandoned by their own father, and that it seems even his stepmother hates him. He takes his cell phone and starts a voice recording, so he asks to repeat everything he said. The big guy, already furious with that, tells him to fuck off and, gathering energy in his hand, says he won't say anything and instead attacks, saying Dojun is nothing more than the son of a bitch. The MC just watches, and, with a simple raise of his hand, blocks the attack and immediately reflects it back. This leaves Chiolwoo confused since his punch was simply reflected. Dojun, still with his hand raised, uses his impulse technique and throws the big guy far away. Without wasting time, he jumps and starts beating that trash. Meanwhile, the restaurant employee is terrified because she needs to call the police and no longer even remembers the number. At that moment, someone appears pulling the phone. It was Joyan saying she is fine and will take care of it. She feels relieved since a rank S is there to help. Meanwhile, he keeps beating the big guy and the rank S starts approaching, thinking Chiolwoo is a rank B hero. So this means that to get beaten like that, Dojun must be above that. But she also realizes a rank A wouldn't have that much strength until she calls him, making the MC stop the attacks. She warns that if he continues, he will end up killing the guy. He looks ahead and decides to loosen his body. Juyan takes the chance to ask what he knows about Chielwoo. He answers that he knows everything he needs to know and asks why, and if she cares about it. She replies that she obviously cares, since the guy's cousin is the rank S hunter called Young Pio. He says he already knows that and asks what the problem is. She is surprised he already knows that and still doesn't care about what might happen, so she thinks he's very naive. She looks at the beaten body on the floor and comments that the only reason the guy acted that way is because his cousin will protect him. So she reinforces that the MC will be in danger from that moment on. He laughs hearing that, and she questions if he is not afraid. Dojun approaches her and says that the fact that they have information about himself is bothering him. He says this with his intimidating look up at her. Meanwhile, the employee is hiding behind the counter, outraged, since a rank S said she would take care of the matter, but hasn't done anything so far. Ju Yeon apologizes for showing up suddenly, and explains that her uncle asked her to do this since he reported that he went to the store to sell some magical stones and wants her to sell them. She asks how many, and she replies that she will buy all that they have. The MC finds this interesting and says that he has many. She responds that it's not a problem since the benefits of an S-rank hero go beyond his imagination. Looking at the defeated body on the ground, he explains that it's not that he doesn't want to sell, but that there is a condition. She asks what it is, and he says it's nothing serious, especially for the famous Ju Yan. Elsewhere, someone breaks a bottle on the floor. It was Heju, upset because it was reported that Dojun had lost his life in the rift. Her secretary says he is sorry since even the association thought he was dead. She says she doesn't want to hear excuses and asks how he will handle this. He says he has something to say first and explains that the boy defeated Cheolwoo, but she is shocked, even when the secretary says that apparently Dojun knows something after defeating Cheolwoo. She starts to sweat coldly because if her father or husband finds out, she will be in trouble, and even though she knows she can handle it, she is afraid it will leak to the media and affect her company. Because of this, she instructs not to let it leak to the public, since they will end up losing their sponsors, and that the police must be silenced first. He reassures her by saying that all the newspapers and police have already been silenced. She sits more relieved knowing this. Then he approaches and whispers that it won't help much anyway, since Cheolwoo is Yongpyo's cousin. She is surprised to learn this. Cheolwoo has always been known as trash among the heroes, and as far as people know, Yongpyo cares about his cousin. However, the blonde is just a pawn used to do the S-Rank's dirty work without getting his hands dirty. The secretary says that even for someone important, it would be bad if the police and reporters got involved. She orders a meeting to be scheduled as soon as possible since they need to meet with him and asks about Chang-seob and if he really betrayed them. He answers yes and explains that they are even taking care of Dojun's family. Heju is outraged by this, ordering a call to Mr. Park since they will make Chang-seob pay for betraying and switching to the MC. In another place, several heroes are gathered. There are 37 rift zones in Korea. 5 of them are turning into portals, while the others are under the care of the Hero Association. Juyeon hands over her card, which is immediately confirmed. They go to the entrance, and Dojun, who is also accompanying the mission, imagines there is only one entrance. And even though Juyeon is a famous S-rank, her identity was still verified. Inju approaches her and says she is surprised since it is quite rare for them to be called to a rift zone. This is the Guildmaster Cleome, an A-rank hunter. Juyeon doesn't know what to say and just says she wanted to have some fun. Then she looks back toward the MC. Their conversation at the restaurant went as follows. He said he had a condition, which was to let him enter the rift zone, and if they did that, he would be willing to sell all the stones he has at market price. And the reason for wanting to enter was that he would make more money in the rift zone. She thinks about this since it is too crazy to enter such a dangerous place just for money. She imagines that he doesn't care since thanks to him, she got a heroic magical stone. After they pass the entrance, Inju asks her to be honest and asks who the guy on the mission is. She replies that he is just an acquaintance. The guildmaster is not convinced and asks if he is her boyfriend or something like that. She replies that she isn't and that she was only owing him one and recruited him for the mission as a form of payment. The grasshead is surprised that an S-rank heroine owes something to anyone. As the group walks, they hear something just like the MC. Immediately, everyone takes battle formation since a giant bird is flying toward them. Inju can't believe it's a basilisk, and immediately the captain coordinates the team to defend and attack. However, Dojun just runs past and heads straight for the monster. Seeing this scares everyone because they don't understand what the boy is doing. He gathers energy in his hand since he finally has his first target. Close to the basilisk, he concentrates the flames in his hand and lands a solid punch to the monster's face, sending it crashing forcefully to the ground. Then he descends and stands in front of the knocked-out bird with a huge hole in its head caused by the punch. A group member asks if a basilisk was really defeated with just one blow, but the MC raises his foot and stomps hard, saying it will only die if he does that. Everyone is shocked witnessing this scene until Inju turns and asks who the hell the boy is. Jo-yeon doesn't quite know what to say and just replies that he's just a very strong boy, but she doesn't accept that answer and starts shaking the captain, questioning how many heroes she knows who could take down a basilisk with a single blow. She is left speechless and says she believes that even the guildmaster could do such a feat and therefore doesn't understand the reaction. Inju doesn't accept this answer since they even witnessed a fight in the air, and with just one punch, he knocked down the basilisk like it was a little bird. Jo-yeon looks scared toward the MC, trying to imagine his true identity. Because of this, she says she will change the plans a bit and says she will go toward the center a little. She asks Dojun for permission, but he quickly interrupts, saying he won't share anything with those who didn't help. Then he puts the stone in his bag. She replies that she's not there to ask for that, and admits she thought he was too strong for such a simple monster, and asks what he thinks about going further in. Immediately he smiles and says it sounds fun. She starts walking, saying she knows that area very well and will serve as a guide, but asks him to stay close so he doesn't get lost. She barely says this and starts running at an impressive speed. The MC notices she suddenly started running, and so he crouches and practically disappears with the speed he has. The group just watches from afar, unbelieving, since as far as they know, Jo-yeon runs at bullet speed, so they think Dojun is the very light. A group member asks if they won't go after the two, The guildmaster asks if it's possible to follow them. He answers that obviously it's impossible, and so they will have to hunt around the surroundings. She goes to the defeated basilisk, seeing the damage the MC caused, reveals that she and the rest of the group are revered for being A-rank heroes, but admits that compared to S-rank heroes, they are insignificant beings since there are powerful people like Zhao Yan and another certain someone whose name she doesn't say. Meanwhile, Zhao Yan is moving at full speed until she looks back and sees nothing and wonders if she should slow down. But at that very moment, the MC, who was already by her side, asks if she could run a little faster, and so she is overtaken. She simply couldn't believe it since she doesn't understand how she was caught, as when it comes to speed, she's top 2 in the entire Korea. The MC decides to walk backward until matching her speed, and confesses that he did not expect her to be so slow, besides not being able to keep up with him that way. Zhou Yan shouts furiously, since at no point did she say she would follow him. The MC stared up towards some mountains. He catches her attention and asks what is at the top of the mountain. She is surprised, recognizing the area because it is where the Rift Boss is. She further explains that it is a monster called Kassarian, a creature about 20 meters tall that resembles a pterosaur, and warns not to even think about fighting this monster since it requires at least 3 rank S heroes to take it down. He asks if by any chance this boss has a high-level magic stone. She replies that it obviously does, and that the magic stone is even more powerful than a normal high-level one, and questions why he asks. Then he just resumes walking, and she becomes scared, wanting to know if he is really thinking about profiting from the boss, since she did not call him to the rift to do something so dangerous. But when she sees, he is already running at full speed, and she becomes terrified, since facing Kassarian alone is suicide, so she starts running too, getting close to him, but the MC disappears by increasing his speed even more along the trail toward the top of the mountain. After a while, Zhou Yan is shocked by what she sees and asks what the hell that is, since in front of her, the boss is already completely defeated. She sees Dojun putting away his knife and cannot hide her shocked expression because Kassarian is extremely powerful, and she even knows of a rank S hunter named Yahello who was known for hunting this boss. When this hero faced him for the first time along with a group of rank A hunters, all were obliterated, leaving only Yahello alive. He was frustrated by this, and, after that event, created a group with another rank S hero and 2,000 rank A heroes, purely for revenge. The hunters attacked with their arrows targeting the boss's wings and also restrained him in various places with their magical bindings. The rank S took advantage of the moment and attacked together with his whole group, but Kassarian also fought back, and the battle went on for hours, being a complete massacre. She says the hero did manage to hunt Kassarian, but most of the heroes died, and because of that, the great guild Sweet Life has not recovered its strength even after 3 years. The MC, who was opening the monster to collect the stones, looks aside and says the girl did not help at all, so he says it's good for her to know what that means. Zhou Yan gets furious since at no point did she say she wanted any reward. She remains surprised because if she had not seen with her own eyes the infamous Kassarian being defeated with a single blow by the MC, he finally manages to remove the magic stone and, after admiring it for a while, he puts it away and says he no longer needs a guide and tells her he will walk alone from then on. She asks if he won't take any more parts of Kassarian, since besides the magic stone, there are other valuable items like the boss's scales and claws. He stops walking and says he doesn't care. Then he resumes walking, saying it's better to get other magic stones than those materials, and that she can even take those for herself, considering it payment for helping as a guide. She looks at the defeated monster on the ground and replies that she doesn't need any of that. Later in the afternoon, the group of heroes is gathered, and several backpacks are piled up. The rank A heroes watch, and a guy comments that Dojun is constantly grabbing backpacks there and returning with them full of magic stones. He admits that their guild would have to hunt for at least 3 continuous days to get the same amount of stones that he has. The guildmaster looks at Zhou Yan sitting on the floor and asks who the heck the boy is. She is aware of the absurd speed she witnessed and, frightened, imagines that if what Zhou Yan said was true, then the boy finished Kassarian without any special equipment and concludes that this could mean he is the strongest hero in all of Korea and maybe even in the whole world. She then looks to the side and sees the MC arriving with another backpack and throwing it on the floor. They start gossiping that Dojun came back with another full backpack and believe that even if they told other people, no one would believe it. They say it's even better not to tell anyone since they won't believe it. Zhou Yan gets up and starts talking to the MC. They watch from afar and wonder if the two are flirting. They suggest that the boy could take better care of himself to match Zhou Yan's beauty, since they think the two go well together because he is not ugly. However, Inju stops to think since what she's seeing can't be called flirting because she is witnessing him being a little rude to Juyeon, who never thought she would see someone treating her like that. Suddenly, he hands the backpack to her and starts walking out. Inju is outraged, questioning if the guy is just going away without even saying goodbye, and the captain replies yes. She asks why he left the backpacks there. Juyeon explains that she told the MC that when everyone finds out he defeated Kassarian, he will become famous overnight, but he replied that he hates to attract attention and so asked her to take care of everything. The guildmaster is surprised that someone would refuse such fame and just comments that he's a strange guy. Juyeon is silent for a second and, with a blushed face, says he's strange even too much. After that, in the city, inside a training gym, someone is training by punching a punching bag until he prepares himself and, with his powerful strike, tears the bag into pieces. This is Yahello, a rank S hero and master of the Sweet Life Guild. His subordinate, who was nearby, asks him to calm down and cites a saying that a frog that stays crouched for a long time jumps higher, and the longer it endures, the greater the reputation. Yahello agrees and says that everyone who humiliated him fell hard. The secretary says exactly that, and that he just needs to accumulate power until the time when everyone will bow before him. Then he mentions Kassarian, saying that no one knows the monster better than him, since he believes that one day he will be known as the hero who defeated Kassarian with the fewest people possible. The guildmaster grabs the water bottle and starts laughing since, in fact, no one knows that monster better than himself. However, he comments that compared to 3 years ago, their guild's fame has dropped a lot, but assures that it doesn't matter who goes with him, since he is sure he can finish it. The man replies that it is exactly as he said, since there is no one who could do such a thing. Elsewhere, someone is looking at the MC's file. It was Young Pyo wanting to know if it was the said Dojun. His subordinate replies yes, that it's the boy whose cousin left him in a portal to die months ago, and even so, he survived. The boss asks for more information, and he explains that the client is Heeju, executive director of Group T, and is even the second daughter of Group W. Young Pyo concludes that the woman is rich and wonders why the heck she wants the boy dead. He explains that from what he heard, Dojun is the illegitimate son of Group T and was taken to her house 7 years ago, and when the woman gave birth to her last child, Dojun ended up being expelled. Young Pyo laughs hearing this since, apparently, in the world of the rich, blood really doesn't matter, and asks how much the woman paid Cheol Woo. He answers that it was 3 billion won. Young Pyo says he heard that his cousin got hurt recently, and his subordinate answers that yes, he even got beaten so badly to the point of being covered in burns and can't even see, not knowing how he survived. The rank S picks up his golf club and hits the golf ball into the hole. Then, with a strange face, he says that if it were him, he would have torn the MC into pieces and crushed his head. However, his attention shifts when his secretary tells him there are rumors that Juyeon helped Dojun. He goes to his subordinate, outraged, and asks why the hell she would do that and what the relationship between them is. The employee says he doesn't know, but it was thanks to her testimony to the police that things went well. Nevertheless, his fury doesn't diminish, and so he wants to find out what the relationship between them is, because if there is nothing, it means they have some agreement behind the scenes, and he wants to know exactly what happened. The man runs off since he needs to do this immediately. Young Pyo looks down irritably and even crushes the golf club, then throws it on the ground. He worries because Heeju will look for him soon to do what Cheolwoo wasn't able to. Then he relaxes a bit, and again with his strange face says that woman is very kind and very rich. After that, at night, the MC keeps walking through the streets. He reflects that hunting in the Rift Zone is more efficient than any portal, and therefore already knows he will depend on Jo Yeon if he wants to do it again. Back to when they were inside the Rift, Jo Yeon says that if she sells the Kassarian Magic Stone, people will come after her questioning her abilities, and the media will get very agitated overnight, and says she can even hold them off, and still says that if he wants to become famous, no problem, and asks what he will do. He just hands over the backpack and tells her to take care of things. He smiles, remembering all this, and says he will look for another way to enter the rifts. Then he arrives home since, for now, he wants to rest. Upon opening the door, he looks down and notices many shoes there. Then he enters the house and sees several people standing in front of his family and a blonde guy sitting with crossed arms. Immediately, his sister runs to him, and the MC asks who they are. The man introduces himself as Cheol Young, the chief prosecutor of Seoul's main office, and asks if he knows Chang Seob. The MC remains silent. The prosecutor informs him that he is being arrested for involvement in illegal sales operations and abusive fee collections authorized by CEO Chang Seob. The next day at the prosecutor's office building, the MC is sitting and, looking to the side, sees someone walking. It is the prosecutor on a call. He is talking to the director, saying that both Chang Seob and Do-jun were obedient and still thanks him for taking care of his daughter's exchange. He asks to send his regards to Director Hong and says the reason he became a prosecutor is to remove society's trash. Then the report is placed on the table, and he questions what has been done so far since. Looking at the accusations list, Do-jun could spend at least 10 years in prison and warns that Chang Seob has already helped prove that several of those things are true. The MC stares silently, and this makes Cheol-young furious to the point of calling him a son of a bitch and asking if he thinks this is a joke. But he is startled when the MC asks if it is Hee-ju the bitch who is doing all that. He stands up asking who Hee-ju is and what he is talking about. He reflects that apparently they already got rid of Chang Seob and even tried to go along smoothly to avoid drawing attention but ended up like that. The man starts to walk and asks if by any chance he thinks Korean prosecutors are a joke. However, with a simple, scary look, the prosecutor gets scared and steps back, having felt a terrifying aura. He gets furious about that and raises his hand to slap. However, he stops midway because one of his employees is calling him to see something. After going to another room, Cheol-young reads the report and asks if the machine is broken. The employee replies no and says they checked several times and the hero meter labeled Do-jun as a civilian. He explains that he doesn't know exactly how it happened and asks if maybe the information about the boy having awakened was wrong. The prosecutor starts to sweat nervously since he can't imagine the Group T investigation being wrong and sees that the MC knows Hee-ju, so he doesn't understand who the hell the boy is. Meanwhile, the MC remains seated. He reflects that it finally makes sense why Korean prosecutors are called mad dogs and doesn't know if he should completely destroy that place or not, and still needs to flee somewhere with his grandmother and sister. At that moment, someone opens the door. It was Ju-yeon who, seeing him, asks what he is doing there. He answers that he honestly has no idea. She asks him not to do anything and not to stall the prosecutor's office because, although it seems absurd, if he uses force there, it will be much harder to deal with the consequences. He asks if she's going to help him. She answers that she knows he did nothing wrong, and if he knew nothing, it would be one thing. But since he knows he did nothing, then it means he was wrongly accused. That's why they need to take care of this immediately. The MC smiles, asking if she is serious. She explains that the Hero Association will take over the investigation and that she will keep an eye on him since he has a false hero registration and illegal entries through the portals. However, he interrupts her, asking about his family. She pretends not to understand, asking if he thinks she is his secretary and why she should know about his family. He stares at her while she looks away until she asks him to relax since his family is safe. Do-jun thanks her for that and says he will reward her for what she is doing. Jo-yeon blushes and asks for patience so this can be resolved as quickly as possible. What she chose was not to prove the MC's innocence, and prosecutor Cheol-young was fired after it was discovered that he accepted bribes and made illegal requests. And a fair investigation confirmed that Do-jun had nothing to do with the incident. Him being punished for using a false registration was thanks to Jo-yeon's defense that everything ended with him being formally released. They were driving together when the radio announces that currently, in the United Kingdom, a monster never seen before came out of the portal and is attacking civilians. 4 eyes and a potent venom. The MC doesn't even let the radio finish and says the monster is a Macassian. She is surprised hearing that and asks how he knows that since it's a new monster, so only the association knows its name, but he just keeps looking ahead. A monster's name is not something decided alone, and every magic stone has condensed energy that generates unique information about monsters. By analyzing, it is possible to identify the name and other information. Currently, this is possible on Earth through science, and in the ruined world, it was through magic. And since the same monsters appear in both worlds, Do-jun knows most of their names. He warns that they can easily deal with a Macassian using the red ant flower extract. She asks more about it, and he explains that although it does not harm humans, it is very dangerous against a Macassian, since if thrown at this monster, it will prevent it from jumping as it normally does. She remains silent listening to this information until she asks exactly who he is. The car continues its journey and the MC stays silent. Suddenly, he says he wants to know something and, with his assassin intention, asks what will happen if he finishes Hee-ju. Elsewhere, Hee-ju is biting her nails, outraged with everything that is happening. Her secretary is in front of her and tells her everything that happened. She questions why the hell Jo-yeon got involved. He answers that he is not sure about the relationship between the two or how they met. Hee-ju can't hold her anger and calls the rank S a bitch, also asking who she thinks she is. She stands up, furious, since she doesn't understand why the report says Do-jun is not a hero, as she is certain he awakened as one. He replies that they are also investigating this since it was clear he had awakened, and speculates whether the boy used some trick to pass the detector. Though it's just speculation, the woman's expression changes completely, and she orders them to call Rank S Young Pyo, informing that the reward is now 30 billion to get the job done quickly. However, upon hearing this offer, he replies that he can't do anything with 30 billion and therefore wants double. The employee asks if that isn't a bit too much. He answers obviously not, since from Heeju's perspective, no one is better than him, and to solve things 60 billion won't be anything for someone like her. He changes his look and says Zhao Yan is involved, so the minimum he should receive is 60 billion for having to fight a rank S. The employee admits the woman is really dangerous. At this moment, Young Pyo slams his foot on the table, scaring the employee. He approaches and questions if he really knows nothing, since rank S are not all the same, and warns he could finish Zhou Yan's race in 20 minutes. Then he asks if there was a response from the association, and he answers that the United Kingdom said they couldn't increase anything else, and the association already announced they are selecting heroes to be dispatched on the mission. Young Pyo thinks that's a pain, and turns around saying the association idiots are even greedier, and asks when they will leave. He replies in 3 days, and it will be a trip with the Japanese heroes. The rank S watches through the window, thinking about the Makashin, since it's a new monster whose weakness is still unknown, and believes that if he discovers it, his value will increase even more. Meanwhile, in England, strong thunder is falling from the sky, and the monster is running after people. He stands before several heroes, and raising his claw, attacks and hits the ground hard. Then everyone shouts to attack, and a fierce battle begins between them. All the heroes use their magic until finally, one of them manages to cut the monster's head, which falls hard on the ground, lifeless. They breathe relieved until they look to the side and notice more monsters approaching, and, having seen it too late, the white-haired is attacked and finished. The British heroes are doing their best to hold the monsters on the battlefield, but with little information, they can hardly do anything against an unknown enemy. The defensive line has already collapsed, and the monsters are less than 60 kilometers from the capital, London. At that moment, something shiny begins to fall toward the Macassians, and they, who had their eyes activated, simply go out and fall hard to the ground. Absolutely all the monsters that were hit. At the top, a helicopter can be seen, and the heroes celebrate, saying that Zhou Yan was right since the red ant extract worked perfectly, and the Makashin can no longer get up. The heroes look at her, as they do not believe she is someone so skilled. Zhou Yan shouts to her team to finish off the monsters that are immobilized, and with that, she joins the attack along with everyone. The next day, all the reporters are gathered waiting for the interview. One reporter asks if everyone is there because of Zhou Yan, since she had an incredible performance in the United Kingdom. The Four Eyes answers yes, since she was the heroine who discovered the Makashin's weakness and saved the United Kingdom from despair. While the man was speaking, another's eyes shine because in front of him was the rank S heroine. Everyone immediately starts calling her, asking how she discovered the unknown monster's weakness. They also interview Young Pyo, asking for his opinion since they heard he was the one who finished off the most Makashins during the mission. The reporter says that a group of 200 people, including 2 rank S, returned to the country, and as everyone imagined, Korea is proud for having saved the United Kingdom. This news was displayed on all the billboards in Korea, including one near where the MC was. He looks fixedly and sees Young Pyo on the billboard, and this makes him furious, changing his expression instantly upon knowing who he is. Elsewhere, several bags are placed on the table, and the MC asks what that is. Jo-yeon says that one bag is for his sister, the other for his grandmother, and lastly for himself. At that moment, he starts to rummage through the bag, but she asks him not to do that there since he should only open it when he gets home. He realizes they are clothes and says they were probably expensive. She says it's a reward for helping her, since thanks to him, she became a real heroine, and she emphasizes that the gift is small compared to how much he helped her. So she adds that if he ever needs something like a car, she can give him that too. He replies that he'll see and let her know, since she also helped him in her own way. Ju-yeon asks if he would tell how he knew Makassian's weakness if she were to ask, but gets frustrated when he asks why he would reveal something like that. She then changes the subject and asks what he plans to do in the future, guessing it's not something like wishing for world peace, and says things would get much worse if he decides to go after Heeju or Young Pyo, as she couldn't let something like that happen if things got ugly. He stays silent for a moment and replies that first, he wants to buy a house. She is shocked, as she didn't expect something so simple, and asks if he's currently renting, and they continue talking. Elsewhere, a party is happening with several girls by the pool. Young Pyo is with them and can't stop thinking about how different Hao Yeon is. He remembers that she knew Makashin's weakness, and it was as if she was hiding that fact. The two were on the plane, and he asked if it was really true that Dojin crushed a prosecutor's head with one punch, and that the idiot Cheolwoo was there when it happened. Jo Yeon removes her eye patch and replies that, first of all, it was his cousin who started it, and says that from what she heard, Cheolwoo tried to kill the MC by taking him to a portal, and that even the day they fought, it was Cheolwoo who started it. He smiles sincerely, and getting closer to her, says that Cheolwoo really acted without thinking, but emphasizes that they are cousins, and that now he has reasons to go after Dojun. The two stare at each other for a moment, and she just turns away, telling him to do what he wants, since she won't get involved in that. He is confused because he thought she would complain, so he believes their relationship isn't as good as he thought. She says once more that she has no reason to do anything. Back to the present, young Pyo fills his glass, and while drinking the wine, he can only think about what Jo Yeon said about not getting involved. And so, he believes there is some secret about Dojin. In Long Sutton, England, the place that was devastated by the monster wave, the British Hero Association wants to collect as many magic stones as possible before the second wave. And so, a certain number of heroes will be sent to the rift. A man says it's a shame, because if they at least had the extract from the red ant flower, even D-rank heroes could finish the Makashins. Another man agrees, saying that if they had discovered it earlier, they could have gotten several magic stones too. That region is where a monster wave already happened and it can no longer be closed. The man says he heard that the monsters from the second wave will be different and believes it will be worse because they don't even know what kind of monster will come out. And he heard that several cities were destroyed. Suddenly, one of them turns and looking at the portal, says he felt something coming out of that place and guesses that their team, which went in some hours ago, might be coming out now since it's been 5 hours. They decide to stay alert since there are many ordinary people wanting the magic stones too. Suddenly, a strong energy starts emanating from the rift and that scares both of them. A person begins to come out of the rift with a strange appearance. The man is frightened since it's neither a hero nor the army commander, and so he orders them to call headquarters immediately. However, the monster in human form raises his hand and some magic circles appear around the two. They begin to float while the monster walks away. One of them draws 3 knives and throws them instantly. However, all of them are blocked, and the new monster calls them weaklings. He then closes his fist, and both have their bodies crushed without even moving from the spot. Next, the monster raises his finger, and a beam begins to emit, materializing a device with the number 19.26%. He says it's already been 10 years, according to the time of that place, and can't believe it hasn't even reached 20%. He wonders if something went wrong, since even after activating a rift, he will still have to find a way to increase his mana. The hunter on the ground, still alive even with his body crushed, asks who the hell the monster is. He smiles and shatters the guy's body like it was nothing, and says he will eliminate those weaker than an insect. Meanwhile, in Paju, the MC is walking peacefully until he looks to the side and notices an intense tremor. At the same moment, several monsters come out of the ground and start piercing all the terrain beside him. He calculates the width of the holes, and, with his hand on the ground, realizes that there are 26 monsters within a radius of 100 meters. So, excited, he looks forward to how many of them will survive his attack. Without thinking twice, he fires his fireball, which, in the same second, causes several colossal explosions in each hole formed, and all the monsters are thrown high into the air with such force. He observes the destruction he caused and smiles at the power he possesses. Meanwhile, at the Hero Association, the president asks about the MC, since he wants to know what everyone knows about him. The executive director says that he is a difficult young man to deal with, in addition to having received confirmation that he really is a hero. Tai Wang finds this strange and comments that, as far as he knew, the boy's identification device said he was just a civilian, and the director says he did not receive any information about it. Songchul interrupts and says that he is nothing but an insolent brat, since if the Hero Association asks for something, the person must do it immediately, responding accordingly. At this moment, Hongyi raises his finger, since he has one more thing to tell, and reveals that, although it is nothing serious, he explains that apparently it all started with a terrible plan by the hero Cheolwoo and Dojun, who ended up awakening in an incident at the portal, later took revenge on Cheolwoo, and dealt alone with the monsters that appeared in the district. He concludes that, although the boy's actions are a bit exaggerated, the MC's strength is definitely absurd. The president says that apparently he is a wild horse running loose, but at least they don't need to question his loyalty. After all, he applied for an official hero license and has a guarantee that he can skip the standard procedure. Everyone asks what this guarantee is, and if it is from someone in the association, and the director explains that Do-jun mentioned Miss Jo Yeon, the rank S heroine. Immediately, everyone is shocked, since they did not expect this from the MC. Meanwhile, he is admiring his new card and realizes that it says he is the 8th rank S of Korea. Thanks to this, he can hunt as much as he wants in the rift zones. Back to the president, he bursts out laughing, also commenting that he is an incredible boy, since he barely got the license and went straight to the Paju Rift and at an incredible speed. The vice president asks to wait, since from what he understood, Dojun entered a level 2 rift alone, without any guild or support, and questions if he is crazy. The president remains silent, as does the executive director. Songchul realizes what the silence means and suggests revealing the true identity of the MC to the public if he returns alive from the portal, since he is the 8th rank S of Korea. Honggi immediately cuts off this idea, believing that Dojun will not want it, and therefore, it would be smarter to just talk to him first. Songchul finds this absurd, since in a critical moment people need to know that there is an 8th rank S, and asks what the president thinks. He gets up, understands everyone's concern, and says that he will see the MC personally. Meanwhile, Dojun is fighting, and the more he kills, the more monsters appear. He activates his fire ability and cuts all the monsters at once. Since he is not very patient, he finishes killing them all, and after deactivating his ability, he takes a deep breath, since, as expected, he consumed too much mana and therefore decides to go after a weapon. He goes to the hero complex in Gansan. Upon entering, the seller politely asks him to provide the name of the person who made the reservation, but the MC just throws his backpack on the counter and asks to make a weapon with the items he has. The employee responds that they only serve people who made reservations and therefore asks him to go to another store. Dojun changes his gaze and points out that they answered the phone saying they still had several reservations, and even so are implying that they don't want to accept. Boku says that all reservations are already filled, and since they are out of time, they should go to another shop as there are other good blacksmiths in the city. The MC, without patience, grabs him by the collar and leaves the guy in despair to the point of asking what he thinks he is doing since he is the son of the owner he is messing with. He approaches and orders him to call his father at that exact moment, since he only came to the shop because they said the place is good. Boku steps back and immediately calls his father, informing him that there is a customer wanting to see him. Chio-kwan arrives at the place, and the first thing he asks is who recommended the shop. The MC informs that it was the heroine, Jo Yeon. The two are shocked since the recommendation came from one of the strongest heroines in the country, and for that reason, he asks if it is really true. Dojun just picks the items he wants to use for his weapon, and this leaves the blacksmith scared, sweating cold as he takes the items in his hands. His son asks what it is since he noticed the surprise, and he replies that they are 2 fang tips of a giant monster and that it had been a long time since he had seen something like that. Dojun explains that he wants a long sword, as long as possible, but the blacksmith informs him that without metallic materials, if he stretches the sword too much, it will have no durability, and therefore he can only make 2 medium swords. However, the MC questions if maybe he is the one who doesn't know how to make it. Both are outraged by this accusation, but Dojun continues his explanation, since he only wants a long sword and even wants the mana absorption to be as high as possible. The old man is already trembling with anger, and his son shouts, since a nobody arrived at the shop accusing them of knowing nothing, and therefore he grabs a sword to show that his father can make something of at least level 3 absorption. Dojun observes the sword and comments that it is probably at level 5. With that, he starts putting force into the blade, overflowing an intense aura that leaves the 2 blacksmiths scared, since in the blink of an eye, the sword broke entirely in his hand, leaving only the crumbs falling to the ground. With that, the MC warns that if it is to create trash, it is better for him to retire, and both stare at each other with hatred in their hearts. After leaving the shop, he goes to a portal and soon encounters a monster. He finds it too noisy and prepares his skill. At the same instant, the Cyclops tries to trample him, but he moves at high speed, standing face to face with the giant, and with a single attack severely injures the shoulder of his target, who only screams in pain. Also grabbing a tree as a weapon and attacking, but it is useless since Dojun cut it in half, and full of confidence, he continues advancing, cutting the big monster in several places. However, it was not enough since it has colossal regeneration, and in moments it was already completely healed. The MC is not intimidated by this, and advances once again, hitting the Cyclops back directly, which feels the explosion of fire since it was a precise blow, and before it could do anything, its head is cut off without even seeing what happened, to the point of falling dead to the ground. Dojun reflects that it is very difficult to maintain the mana sword for long. He takes a jar from his bag and goes to the monster's body, feeling pleased since he got the liquid he needed. Then, he returns to the blacksmith and delivers on the counter the blood he obtained. Boku asks what the hell that is, and the MC just orders him to deliver it to his father, since if combined with the fangs he gave earlier, it will be possible to make a longsword. He says this as he leaves, leaving the boy even more confused, asking at least to tell more details about it. He just continues his journey, imagining that he already got all the basic materials and only lacks one specific item to improve mana absorption. He is even aware that this particular material exists only in one place in the world. The next day, Jo Yeon's phone rings and she answers asking what he wants, and gets confused since from what she understood something was said about Brazil. Still at the pool, the heroine is relaxing with her friend and decides to ask if the association will send a hero to Brazil. In-jo replies yes since the two governments have allied, and also points out that the monsters are very violent but give many mana stones. And since the payment is high, the guild decided to go. She even comments that the two of them will go together and will also take the MC. She gets embarrassed hearing this, and her friend says that he is the 8th rank S hero everyone is talking about. Jo Yeon pretends not to understand and says she knows nothing, but her friend soon realizes something is going on and asks if by any chance the two have a special relationship, besides finding it really cute. Back at the blacksmith, he confesses to being surprised and also wants to know how the hell he found out, since the liquid was not even metal and yet it fused completely, welding the pieces. That is why he asks how he knew that Cyclops' blood could be used like that. Dojun only smiles without saying anything, and the blacksmith says he will try to make it as long as possible and believes he can reach 180 centimeters. The MC takes the opportunity to give more specifications since he does not want a sword with a thick handle, as it should be adjusted for use with only one hand, and 5 kilos is fine. Chul-kwan is surprised to see his client being polite since at first he thought he was just a rowdy kid, and wonders if the reason is that the sword is precious to him. He also takes the chance to ask if 5 kilos is not too heavy for just one hand, since he will have to swing the sword several times. He replies that it is fine since he can do it as requested, and the blacksmith explains that he will try, but it will take at least a month. The MC meanwhile keeps wondering if a level 7 sword will withstand his own power, and comments that he will need another item, so he leaves asking to start making the sword's base. Chul-kwan asks if by any chance he will search for more mana absorption materials, and is soon surprised, wondering what item it is that Dojun said he would need. A few days later, a car arrives and the MC thanks her since he will make good use of it. Jo Yeon says it was nothing and asks if he thought she had no money, since a car of at most 1 million is nothing. He smiles, saying that it is enough, and she becomes terribly embarrassed with that smile. While he looks at the car, she asks if something is happening in the association. Dojun replies that apparently the superiors want to reveal his identity, so they will pay for it. She is surprised hearing this, and says the president is a very fair person in that regard. He prepares to enter the car, saying that the negotiation did not work out, and she asks him to go easy, even saying she would be grateful if he could take into account that she herself is helping. She then gets into the car as well and says that the association is in chaos because of the problem that collapsed in Brazil, and that as soon as things calm down, they can talk about the president. He is surprised about Brazil, and she explains that apparently they are going to completely isolate the rift zone. With both close to each other, he asks if by any chance she will also go. Zhao Yan starts sweating cold with so much embarrassment from being so close, and replies that she will. Dojun, all gallant, says that then the two of them will go together. That only makes her even more embarrassed. At the same time, somewhere else, Hiju is furious and asks young Pyo what more he wants. He replies that it is not time to be stingy, and she retorts since she gave 30 billion in advance, and therefore wants to know when he will do something. He questions who else would help her, and she answers that there are several people around the world who would kill a hero without hesitation for money. Young Pyo laughs at this, since apparently the woman knows nothing, and says he will give her a bonus piece of information revealing that the MC is a rank S hero, the 8th in Korea. She is in shock since she does not believe that an idiot became a rank S, and asks if he is trying to trick her again. He finds that distrust funny and says that if she does not want to believe it, she just has to wait for everything to explode. Then he prepares to leave. Hiju asks him to wait and, desperate, asks if the MC really is a rank S, since in that case she will no longer be able to control him, and guarantees she will give more money. He smiles since money is important, and tells them to have a good business relationship from that moment on. She says she does not care about that as long as the goal is accomplished. At that moment, his phone vibrates and notifies that, apparently, the heavens are on her side. Hiju is confused as she does not understand what he is talking about, and he explains that the perfect opportunity to kill Dojin just appeared. After that, already on the plane heading to Brazil, the entire expedition team is prepared, as is the MC, who is calmly eating his instant noodles. Their destination is now Brazil. They arrive in the city of Sao Paulo, and a meeting is taking place at the Brazilian Heroes Association. They mention that the Korean task force has arrived at the airport, which is very good since they were fast. One of them comments that some heroes did not waste time and went straight to Brazil without waiting, but admits that, despite this help, he is worried they might discover the secret information the country possesses. The superior says that not everything can be kept secret, and, therefore, they must just keep it under control until the mission ends. He sighs and imagines that the legendary Brazilian hero named Mirai was defeated and killed by an unidentified creature, and honestly, it could not even be called a monster, since what they saw on the black box was clearly a human silhouette. This makes him question what the hell happened in the Eastern Zone. Meanwhile, a lecture is being given to the Korean heroes, and Jo Yeon, worried about the MC's absence, messages asking where he is, since the meeting has already started. He replies that he is on the plane, and she does not understand, as he was supposed to have gotten off with them earlier. The MC explains that he had a connecting flight, as his destination is farther away, and she asks where he is going. He replies that he is going to Santarem, and Jo Yeon is shocked, unable to believe he went alone to the most dangerous rift zone. The meeting continues, with the Brazilians explaining about the rifts, and afterward, at the hotel, Jo Yeon rushes to a taxi, but before closing the door, someone holds it. It is young Pyo, asking where she is going, since locations have not yet been assigned. She just says she needs to go to a certain place, and once again, he asks where. She replies that she is going to Santarem, and continues her journey immediately. He reflects on this place. As far as he knows, it is the location the Brazilian Association strictly forbade them from going. After some time in the Santarem Rift Zone, the MC is accompanied by several people, and Jo Yeon asks straight away why he is in such a hurry. He explains that they had to wait for her, as she arrived late, which is why he is in such a rush. She does not accept this, as if he had told her in advance. No one would have had to wait, and she again asks why they are there. The MC simply replies saying Blue Croco, but she questions what the hell that is, as she does not understand anything. He asks if she needs more reasons, but she asks out of courtesy, since she is 3 years older than him. Meanwhile, the guild watches the two of them, as even though they are always arguing, the tension is noticeable. They continue their journey, and a guild member asks if they can just enter a dangerous rift zone like that, and another replies that it is fine since Jo Yeon is present, and points out that the MC is also just a rookie. The guild member laughs and affirms that Dojun may be a rookie, but he is definitely the best of all rookies. The two are confused by this and ask if he is really that good. Meanwhile, the MC continues talking with Jo Yeon, and she asks him to wait a moment, wanting to know if he entered the rift to clear it all by himself. He responds that he is only there to collect some materials, so it does not make sense to clear everything. She is surprised, as she did not expect that. Suddenly, a giant monster hand appears and hits one of the team members directly, throwing him far away. The Lancer yells for everyone to get into formation and, after looking ahead, worries, as the monsters appear far more terrifying than in the photos. Everyone is concerned, as it seems the situation has become much more dangerous, until the MC draws his sword and tells everyone to stay away. Furthermore, he remembers the blacksmith saying that it would not be easy to take the heart of the blue croco with just his hands, and that is why he lent his beloved to obtain those materials. He prepares himself and, in the blink of an eye, disappears, cutting both monsters at the same time. In 1 second, the blue croco was normal, and in the next second, several cuts appeared on its body, slicing both at the same time. The Lancer imagines he expected nothing less, unlike the other 2 recruits who are simply terrified by what they just witnessed, concluding that Dojun is too powerful. At nightfall, they decide to camp, and people start gossiping, unable to believe that Dojun killed a blue croco alone with a single strike. Jork whispers that MC also killed the Cocastrian and reveals that this is a secret. The hero is startled, aware that the Cocastrian is a monstrous bird, and concludes that Dojun is not a normal hero. He is grilling meat when Jo-yeon approaches, asking if he has finished collecting the hearts of the blue crocos. He points backward and says yes, and she can only imagine that she has no idea what purpose those hearts will serve, also asking what meat he is grilling since it does not seem bovine. However, this question only shocks her further, as he says it is blue croco meat and even offers her a piece. She feels disgusted and comments that they still have plenty of food, so she does not understand why he is eating a monster. He thanks her, saying there will be more left, and begins to eat as if it were beef. Inju watches from afar, finding it absurd. On the other hand, Jo-yeon takes a piece and stares, still not understanding why he is eating when there is other food available. The guildmaster stands up in shock, asking if he really intends to eat it, and the grapehead responds that yes, as far as he understands, it is edible, and without thinking twice, he puts it in his mouth and takes a bite. At first she is confused, but for some reason it tastes good, and she continues eating without complaint. At this moment, Inju approaches MC and asks what his secret is. This question confuses him, and she only whispers, wanting to know how he won over Ju-yeon, since the heroine never had a boyfriend before and never opened her heart so much to a man as she is doing with him. And looking at her, he asks her to explain how she did it and what charm she used to make her eat monster meat. He reflects on this, remembering his previous life when he was at the Imperial Academy before turning 20. He was with Grain Masil from the Count Grain family. He also had the youngest daughter of the Leshulian family. However, his last hope in that world was destroyed with the appearance of the monsters. Suddenly, he wakes up after being yelled at by Inju, as he was lost in the moon world thinking about it. He turns angrily and says the secret is to put a mosquito on the fire. She freezes for a moment, shocked inside, as what she just heard is the most horrifying thing she has ever heard in her life, and she slaps her friend, calling her. Meanwhile, still in Sao Paulo, young Pyo is drinking his nest and thinking, trying to understand why the guild moved so quickly when the operation date hasn't even been set, and he asks if Dojun is with them, since practically everyone began moving on their own. He then asks what types of monsters are in Santarem. His secretary informs him that there is little information, as the Brazilian Association only said it is a very dangerous place. This irritates him, as everything involving MC makes no sense. Suddenly, his phone rings, and he answers, greeting Heiju. She yells, wanting to know if MC is still alive and when he will do his job. Young Pyo asks why she is impatient and if something happened. She responds that apparently her father saw the news of Dojun becoming a rank S hero and asked the boy to return home. He finds this amusing, as even the president of Group T is getting involved. He looks at the map of Brazil and says he will not disappoint her, assuring that MC will not leave Brazil. She says she liked the answer. After hanging up the phone, the hunter tells the secretary to talk to Takashi and patrol the Santarem region, since the MC got into an isolated area, which will only make the job easier. Meanwhile, the group continues walking, and Jo-yeon asks if they are really going into the forest, since from what they heard, the monsters in that region are dangerous. He asks what they are, and she, terrified, replies that their name is Lynx. Dojun says he is surprised, as he didn't know there were lynx in that region. She asks if he already knew those monsters, and he replies yes, then starts walking. At that moment, Juyeon calls his attention and says she won't stop him, but shows an item asking him to use it. He asks what it is, and she replies that they are earplugs, since a lynx's roar can paralyze, and asks if he already knows that. Dojun replies that he doesn't need them, and she doesn't understand why, besides yelling that he can't do whatever he wants since the Brazilians reported the place is extremely dangerous. But he ignores her and walks deeper into the forest. After nightfall, the group keeps walking until they encounter a monster in front of them. It was a lynx whose aura alone showed it was extremely powerful, enough to scare the whole group. Immediately, the guild leader shouts for everyone to cover their ears. However, the MC shows no reaction and just stares in the direction of the monster. The wolf begins its deadly roar, and everyone covers their ears except the MC, which puzzles her, as she has no idea why he isn't covering them. At that moment, Dojun picks up a stone from the ground and activates his fire ability. Then he throws it with full force at the lynx, and everyone notices that the noise simply stops as the monster begins to flee. The MC wastes no time and chases after it while the girls try to understand what happened as the monster's roar suddenly stopped. They decide to follow Dojun until they realize they are facing several lynx. One of them emits a terrifying gaze, and everyone freezes in fear. Even Joyeon, who despite being rank S, is mentally affected by the power. At that moment, the MC covers her eyes with his hand and tells her that what paralyzed them was not the roar. He explains that what paralyzes people are the lynx's eyes, and asks her to keep them closed. Then he grips his sword and walks toward the monsters, and with his flaming sword, he slices through the air, wanting to test the sword style of the Bandayan family. Activating the first form, Kilida's miraculous fold. He points his sword forward, forming a ball of power at the tip. The monster immediately feels the intense pressure of the sword, and the fireball grows increasingly powerful. The guild members watch from afar, trying to understand what kind of technique it is, as it seems extremely dangerous. The MC channels his power to the maximum, and in the next second, launches a colossal fireball with full force toward the lynx, completely obliterating the area and vaporizing them one by one with the overwhelming intensity of the attack. The girls try to shield themselves from the strong wind caused, and only then notice that the entire landscape ahead has been devastated, along with the monsters, who were defeated without being able to move. The girls are still in shock, especially Jo Yeon, who can only say that what she saw is impossible. At that moment, a lynx appears severely wounded, having survived the attack, and the MC, anticipating this, walks toward it. Immediately, the monster uses its darkness gaze technique, but it is completely useless, as the MC is immune and its head is cut off. He approaches the eyes and, with his hand, says he will take them, as they are more useful to him. After this massacre, everyone admires him, including the guild leader and Joyeon, unable to believe the absolute power they witnessed, as it is beyond human level. She starts to wonder if, by any chance, his level could be higher than Alphonse's, and believes he might be at Lester's level, since he is the strongest hero in the world. As they walked, some zombies began to appear. The guild members commented that a monster has no sense of the situation, since they are undead and have no brains. Because of this, the monsters attacked, but at the same second, one of them took a punch to the mouth, exploding its head with extreme ease by the MC, who after doing that, simply disappeared, and with his high speed, started obliterating them one by one, and heads rolled in all directions. A complete massacre. The hunters just watched, as there was absolutely nothing they could do. After all were killed, Joyeon caught Dojun's attention and asked where he learned to wield a sword, also wanting to know about the red dot that kept appearing from the sword. He paused to think about the way she was speaking and asked why she was asking and if by any chance she wanted to learn. She became excited, asking if she could really learn. Dojun thought about it, since in such a peaceful world, he normally wouldn't need it, and so he questioned how often she would use the power. She became furious as he treated her indifferently, even though she was rank S, and stated that she wanted to use the power at least once before dying, questioning if he simply didn't want to teach her. He remained silent, staring at her face, until Zhao Yan pouted, realizing she wouldn't get anywhere. Meanwhile, Inju watched from afar and told everyone to hurry to leave the fissure. They began walking toward the portal, and the guild leader could only imagine that thanks to Dojun, everyone would manage to exit unharmed. After everyone left the fissure, someone shouted that they were going to kill a certain person, and several hunters had gathered. She started to approach, recognizing the voice, and came face to face with the MC hugging Juyeon while she was dying of embarrassment. The person who shouted was Takashi, an ex-Yakuza, and also a rank S hero. The man approached the MC and warned that he would finally have fun with Juyeon, blocking the way and telling him to get out before he eliminated him. The MC told her that, apparently, the companions didn't like her much. She was surprised and asked if, by any chance, he understood Japanese, since that was the language the ex-Yakuza used. He commented that he had learned a little, and once again Takashi ordered them to step away, or he would kill her. Takashi's guild members also started shouting, demanding respect for their master and revealing who the person really was. However, they were interrupted when the MC told everyone to shut up, as he wasn't interested in knowing who that old man was, and told them to leave immediately. Both faced each other, and Inju, watching from afar, could only think that the troublemaking hunters were from a rank S guild from Japan, and the leader was a famous ex-Yakuza known for his bad temper, and she believed Dojun would avoid conflict at all costs. She tried to intervene, asking both sides to calm down, but Takashi told her to stay out of it, calling her a slut. Immediately, her guild members asked how he dared speak that way, since he had just insulted a guild master. She immediately ordered everyone to be silent and explained that she was the master of the Violet Guild from Korea, and she wanted to resolve the matter as peacefully as possible. He pointed out that he had never heard of her guild and asked if, by any chance, she needed a man, as he could also handle her. At that moment, he started pulling Juyeon without permission, and because of that, the MC stepped in to stop it. In doing so, he took a punch to the cheek, and Takashi, responsible for the punch, warned that he also had business to handle with Dojun and promised he would kill him later. The MC thought about some random guy having business with him and believed it was a planned provocation, and because of that, decided to accept the provocation. In the next second, MC lands a punch on Takashi's mouth, sending him flying toward the guild, leaving everyone shocked by it. MC tells everyone to step back, since the first punch was only self-defense, and assures that in a one-on-one fight, the smaller ones should stay out. Everyone becomes furious at this provocation until Takashi starts to get up, telling everyone to step back. He begins to overflow with energy and becomes increasingly powerful. Zhao Yan, watching this, starts to get worried, but deep down she hopes he beats Takashi severely. Everyone present is terrified by what they are witnessing, as MC is simply smashing the opponent's head into the ground while kicking him in all directions. Takashi cannot understand how Dojun can be so strong, and looking at him, begins to worry, as the rumors he heard about being a weak rank S were apparently false. Takashi studies MC's expression closely and concludes that if things continue, he will definitely die. Because of this, he starts running to try to escape, but Dojun appears instantly in front of him. Moreover, he asks if anyone requested him to chase that fight, although he already has an idea of who it might have been. Takashi only begs him to spare him, but he finds it amusing since now he wants to beg for his life. Then, with his fist closed, he lands a direct punch that practically deforms the ex-Yakuza's face, so strong that everyone present is completely intimidated by the sheer power. Anju confesses that she cannot believe what she is seeing, as she expected Dojun to be powerful, but not that the difference would be so colossal. MC places his foot on Takashi's head, and the guild leader says she is worried, since if things continue, the master of the Japanese guild will truly die, and therefore asks Juyeon to say something. Immediately she asks Dojun to stop what he is doing, as if he continues, Takashi will truly die, but he just says not to worry, as he will take responsibility. She, however, ignores this and starts pulling him as if he were a child, since this kind of responsibility is not something simple to address, and therefore asks him to have more personal responsibility. He asks if she is sure, since as far as he knows, the stories must be eliminated. Inju asks him not to stoop so low, as he would be on the same level as trash. Zhao Yeon agrees, since the beating Takashi received should be more than enough as a lesson learned. The guildmaster takes advantage of the situation and yells for the Japanese members to behave, or they will face the same fate as their leader. Immediately, everyone bows, saying they understand perfectly. MC asks if it is some kind of joke that they only kneel, and with his intimidating expression, tells everyone to put their heads on the ground. They obey without thinking twice and continue begging all the time for forgiveness. MC looks at one of them and tells him to insult himself by calling himself a dry little turd. The long-haired one, although frustrated, obeys word for word, and everyone starts laughing while Takashi is completely exhausted, unable to do anything. After this, still in Sao Paulo, the president of the Brazilian Association looks at the report and, seeing the two Korean girls in front of him, cannot believe the absurdity he read. After all, a rank S hero was beaten to the point of being nearly crippled, and the opponent was just one man. And since Takashi was the only victim, he already imagines who could have caused this damage and laments, as he expected Korea and Japan to work together. He states that the report is accurate, and therefore there is nothing for the Brazilian Association to intervene in, and thus says they will hand the case over to the Japanese Hero Association and await their decision. Enju agrees. The association leader asks if anything unusual happened at the Santarem Rift. They are confused by this question and respond that nothing particular occurred. Then he comments that Dojun's name appeared the most in the report, but does not understand why he is not present. They try to stall and respond that MC was busy packing his bags. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Takashi is completely terrified since none other than Dojun is standing in front of him holding a bouquet of flowers. He tells him to stay quiet as he is on an official visit to the hospital. Then, holding one of the lynx's eyes, he points directly at Takashi's eyes, who becomes instantly hypnotized. The MC asks his questions, and the guildmaster explains that because of trash like him, he caused problems for the Korean guild, in addition to saying that the Yakuza group is shit. The MC begins to leave the hospital, thinking about that last phrase said about the most famous terrorist group in Japan. The news of the confrontation between Korea and Japan quickly spread, and the president of the Korean Heroes Association asks if by any chance Dojun solved all the problems. Hongi replies that yes, and that news about him is trending every day, but he questions if it is really true that the Japanese association gave up the investigation. Taiwan says that it was Takashi himself, the victim, who said that. They conclude that it is very strange for something like that to come from Takashi, and therefore it must mean that there is something that even Japan wants to avoid. The Four Eyes gets curious about this theory and asks what he has in mind, but he just says he doesn't know, since the only thing he has in mind is that soon he needs to meet with Dojun, because he feels that the balance of the world's heroes will be shaken. After that, on D1, the operation to close the Brazilian Rift Zone is only 1 day away, and the Korean heroes arrived early to adapt to the area. In addition to several interactions between heroes from all over the world happening, even sharing joint operations and detailed individual plans. A pre-battle party was held to encourage success, and definitely, the star was Dojun. Several people did everything to talk to him, and Inju comments that apparently the rumor that the MC defeated Takashi spread globally, and even though everyone talks about it, Dojun doesn't brag about anything, which makes this feat even more incredible. Jo Yeon just watches from afar, immersed in thoughts. The clan leader notices that her friend is daydreaming, and looking to the side, she sees a woman running toward the MC. She knows that the woman in question is Gloria Tyler, an S-rank heroine who is #1 in the world, ranking of most handsome heroes. Seeing this, Inju slaps her friend to wake her up and starts shouting, asking if that is enough to ruin her mood, besides wanting to know why she is sitting when she should act right away. The MC hears the shouts, and seeing Jo Yeon by his side all shy, he just smiles. At the same time, Gloria says goodbye and calls the MC Castle. Jo Yeon gets confused and asks who the hell Castle is. Dojun replies that it is himself. She is surprised by this, and asks if by any chance he had an English name. He explains that the name he used before Dojun was Cassel. Jo Yeon gets thoughtful about this since she never imagined that he had lived abroad as a child, and there was nothing like that in his records when they checked. Besides that, she gets sulky because he never told her anything about it. Meanwhile, Young Pyo observes the two from afar, and all he can imagine is that Takashi is a bastard for not being able to defeat a simple kid. He starts drinking his alcohol, since he is determined to interfere on his own. But here's something at the same moment, because as he passes by the two, he hears Juyeon telling the MC to be careful, because even though she knows he is strong, he has to take into account that enemies are not always fair. She reveals that Takashi has some close allies as well as other complications. The MC says that he is already aware since he knows that these close people are just like Takashi, cowards, weak, but pretending to be tough, and smiling he says that this will not be a problem. Then he turns in Youngpyo's direction and says that it will not be a problem at all. Immediately the S-rank feels that look and also turns with blood in his eyes. Even more when seeing the MC smiling, he furiously clenches his fist and guarantees that he will kill him with his own hands. Later that night, the guild leader confesses that it is the first time she sees something like this since they are in front of the Santarem Rift Zone and the entrance is extremely dark. On the other hand, the Lancer starts walking and says that there is nothing to worry about since they have two S-rank heroes with them. Enju sighs and agrees. Because of that, she shouts for everyone to enter and the heroes line up to proceed with the mission. However, Joyeon looks at Dojun and notices that he is sweating and asks what happened. The MC looks at the moon and asks if by any chance she can't feel it. She doesn't understand what he means and asks the guildmaster if she feels anything. Enju replies that she doesn't feel absolutely anything. The MC keeps sweating cold and says that the concentration of mana has increased even more. Meanwhile, on top of the hill, the humanoid monster is holding a cell phone that shows 23%. He says it won't take long to reach 30% and calls everyone filthy insects, since it would be easier if they all died. At that moment, the hunters start to feel their bodies get heavy and also short of breath, and the MC immediately realizes that the mana is becoming denser than when he was in the Partitua forest. Juyeon keeps watching and gets worried since she has never seen Dojin so tense, concluding that something extremely dangerous is nearby. Inju asks the group to calm down, since it seems to be something from the Rift Zone, and because the group is heavier, they cannot let their guard down. In addition, she informs the Rank S that they will move in a defensive formation and asks whether Dojun can do the same. He replies that it is fine, just like she said, since until the cause of the mana density is discovered, this is the best course of action. The guild leader makes it clear that no matter what happens, they must remember that the objective is to close the rift, and everyone shouts that they are ready. With that, the mission begins. While the MC was entering the Santarem Rift, France, Korea, and Brazil were assigned to the north of Brazil, which is where the largest rift in the city is located. In this place, several assassin bees are running rampant, and the Awakened cannot believe that the monsters are so strong, since it should be possible to hunt them even as a rank C hero. At this moment, an ally is thrown in his direction, and he cannot believe it, since rank A heroes are being brutally pressured. Then a monster targets him, but the hero counterattacks. However, he realizes that his body feels heavy, since a single attack should have completely destroyed the bee, and because of that, he has no idea how many people will come out of that place alive. Back in Santarem, the leader dodges an attack and notices that several orcs are approaching. Jorge comments that he finds it strange, since they do not seem to be ordinary orcs, as they are not supposed to be that strong. They launch an attack and land a blow to the monster's head, which shows no reaction at all. In addition, the orc raises his axe and nearly lands his attack, being saved at the last moment by Joyeon, who tells everyone to be careful. She advances once again, and heading toward the orc, dodges all of them in order to land a kick from behind. Next, she jumps and lands another kick from above. A second orc appears to attack her off guard, but she dodges, and the attack hits the first orc instead. The rank S takes advantage of the chaos, and once again appears attacking, landing another powerful kick that sends the monster flying far away. The Awakened are surprised, since for a moment, they had forgotten just how powerful the rank S is. One of the monsters lets out a powerful roar, and the MC lands a punch that sends it flying away. The captain becomes concerned, since they are facing something this difficult right at the entrance of the rift, and even with two powerful people, closing it will not be easy. Juyeon approaches the MC and asks what he is looking at on the monsters. He replies that the black aura he is seeing on the creature is a problem. She does not understand what he is talking about, and he warns that if she does not focus, she will not be able to see it. and in a few words explains that the black mana is the reason the monsters have become so strong. Everyone becomes worried by this information, since there is clearly an even more powerful enemy. The night goes on, and more monsters keep appearing at every moment, forcing the awakened to fight with all their strength. Meanwhile, the current monster, which looks more like a swamp ghoul, keeps growing larger and larger, and they despair, since the monsters are far stronger than normal. Then, without being able to react, they receive an attack from the monster that sends them flying away. One of them panics, since the blow was strong enough to tear even the combat vest, and this is far too dangerous, and they do not understand what the hell is happening. At that moment, a giant ghoul appears behind him, but the captain appears and blows up the monster. More monsters appear, but she puts an end to all of them. She stops to reflect that if the swamp ghouls are already this powerful, then Velkera will be even more dangerous. And this is definitely a strange rift. Only then does something cross her mind, as it might be that this is happening in rifts all over the world, and not just in Brazil. Meanwhile, in the rift near Manaus, an awakened is running with all his strength, since he witnessed even the powerful Brazilian awakened Arvado die, as well as the Frenchman David. And all of this because of the single monster, Velkera. The MC explains to Jo-yeon about Velkera and says that all of them are infused with dark mana, and that, because of that, it is better to be careful. She asks whether that so-called darkness is the black aura around the monsters they killed. He replies that it is, and she blows up one of the swamp monsters. She continues trying to process what this so-called mana is, since it seems more like something from magic games, and she becomes worried because it feels more like a joke, as she cannot believe that mana actually exists in that world. The MC responds that the biggest difference between heroes and ordinary people is precisely mana. A monster approaches, and in the blink of an eye, he blows up everything in front of him, while imagining that a world without the concept of mana would be a peaceful world, but he believes that such peace would not last very long. Saying this, he goes on to annihilate all the surrounding monsters. Jo-yeon approaches him to see if she understood correctly, since from what she noticed among the types of mana, that darkness is one that makes monsters stronger. He says yes, and that, by comparison, it is like an athlete who used some kind of drug to gain more energy. She says she understands, but has no idea how he knows this. Dojun replies that, in fact, it is strange that she does not know something like that. Next, the captain gives instructions that they will go straight through the monster swamp, and following the MC's warnings, basically the areas where Velkera appears are the most dangerous. Then, after advancing for some time, she orders everyone to stop and tells Dojun that apparently they have found it, since it looks very much like Velkera's food nest, just as he described. After all, there are several monsters wrapped in webs to serve as food. Inju shouts for everyone to be careful, as there must be one nearby. However, the MC responds that there is not, and using his power, reveals that it is actually something more dangerous, and that, fortunately, they found it quickly. Everyone is startled upon seeing him use firepower, to the point of wondering if he is a mage. But the MC simply fires his attacks. Since what is most dangerous, there are the cocoons. He sets them all on fire, and explains that Velkera is using dark mana and will no longer use those monsters as puppets, and warns that if they do not deal with it soon, the number of monsters will increase and they will end up dying, which is why they need to go after Velkera at once. Everyone is shocked by this information, and Inju admits that she is surprised, since it is Dojun's first time in that place, and yet he is not lost at all, and the more she looks, the more incredible she finds him. The others think the same, since at first they thought that he was just a strong guy, but that level has already surpassed human capacity. At that moment, Jo-yeon goes up to him and, asking him to be honest, wonders if by any chance this is his second life or something like that, like in isekai games. He laughs at that and imagines that it could indeed be considered a second life or something similar. Then, he asks how far they are from the core of the rift. She says that as soon as they leave the forest, they will be halfway there. He then says that they will finish it that same day. This leaves the two girls surprised, since it seems impossible. The leader tries to explain that it may seem possible for him, but not for the guild members, since most of them have used almost all the strength they had. He notices the situation everyone is in, and then asks everyone to rest, since he will take care of Velkera and return shortly afterward. With that, he runs off at full speed. The captain cannot understand how the hell someone still has so much power even after fighting so many monsters. After running through the forest, Dojun looks in all directions until he finally finds his target, which is right ahead. He appears with his sword, and she senses the presence of an enemy and therefore leaps, launching her powerful web. However, he dodges and begins attacking the monster from all directions, finishing the powerful boss with extreme ease. He takes a deep breath and imagines that perhaps it was thanks to the dark mana he absorbed while cultivating mana, since he does not feel tired at all. Then he returns to the group completely unharmed, and Juyeon simply cannot believe that he defeated such a powerful monster alone, and to make matters worse, does not even seem tired. He says that apparently there are no signs of monsters in the forest, and that, because of that, they can rest for a bit. Everyone does that, and the MC starts roasting monster meat. Jorge sees this, and a bit embarrassed, asks if he could try it as well. Dojun hands over the skewer, and the guy thanks him. Meiki, curious, asks why he wants to eat that meat out of nowhere, and he replies that he wants to test whether the MC became so strong by eating it. The guy finds it interesting, since he also wants to test it because he has nothing to lose, and they start eating like crazy. Seeing this, Dojun finds it amusing, since that meat does nothing other than satisfy hunger. However, he does not want to shatter the Awakened One's faith that they will become stronger from it, and because of that, he releases his power as a small gift, buffing the players. They immediately feel the effect and celebrate, since after eating the meat, they felt full of energy. The MC likes seeing them happy, and the captain soon begins to explain that if they continue in that direction, they will reach the rift's core. But since everyone is tired, she believes it is better to leave and return the next day. However, since Dojun said it would be possible to close it that very night, maybe they can take the risk, since they have sufficient supplies. He analyzes the situation and turns to ask Julian what she thinks. She admits that she would be lying if she said she was not tired, since thanks to the mana of darkness, the monsters became absurdly stronger. He thinks about this for a moment, since his plan was to delay closing the rift as much as possible to secure the materials, including the blue heart of a crocodile that can only be found in Brazil. However, the appearance of the mana of darkness changed everything, since variables are never a good sign. With that in mind, he grabs his backpack and throws all the stones on the ground. He also tells everyone to return to the hotel first, and, confident as always, says that he will close the rift alone and return afterward. On the way, he encounters several swamp ghouls, but puts an end to all of them, in addition to collecting all the stones found on the monsters. At the same time, the group is leaving, and Inju asks if Dojun will really be fine. Juyeon says that definitely yes, since the guy had energy to spare along with a confident look. Then the captain comments that she looks a bit pale and asks if she might be worried about him. She finds it amusing and imagines that being a rank S hero like him does not seem fair, since she doubts with all her strength that there exists an awakened one like him anywhere in the world. This time, the MC encounters the orcs, but he also slaughters them. The monsters do not stop attacking, but he dodges and, holding his fireball, fires it in their direction and finishes them all with that single attack. After that, he also collects their stones. At the same time, the group has finally exited the rift and continues walking back to headquarters. On the inside, the massacre continues, with the MC being merciless. He takes the heart that was behind and places it inside a jar. Then, he goes to the other bodies and removes all the stones he finds and realizes that in the end, he obtained quite a lot of material. He puts everything into his backpack and leaves. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Brazilian Association of Heroes, everyone is restless until they notice that the rift that was in Santarém has simply disappeared. They do not quite understand what happened, but they celebrate since the rift was finally closed. They wonder where the team from there is, and from what they notice, there is only a Korean team. However, they find it strange, since the guild reported that it had returned from the rift 10 minutes ago. Because of that, they have no idea what is going on. 10 minutes earlier, inside the rift, the two-headed ogre finally appeared, and the MC comments that the monsters evolved rapidly because of the mana of darkness. The orc lifts its leg and tries to crush Dojun, who, upon dodging, realizes that the core is right behind the monster. He prepares his sword to end it once and for all, and, charging his fire energy into the weapon, advances with everything using the second form, the sword style of the Bandayan clan. He makes his move and drives a strike through the orc, which begins to scream in pain despite not having been finished off. Dojun, excited, asks if it was surprised, since this is only the beginning. He advances once again and continues attacking in all directions until he decides to take it seriously, and using his special move, unleashes dozens of strikes at the same time, cutting down even the nearby trees along with the entire terrain. The orc realizes the trouble he is in and tries to jump to evade the attacks while also attempting to counterattack. But a sword strike catches his leg and makes both heads scream in pain. With that, Dojun executes more attacks, and all of them hit their mark this time, which is enough to leave the final boss in pieces. He sheathes his sword and heads toward the portal. As he approaches, he realizes there is no difference at all in the density of the mana of darkness within the core either, and if it is not leaking from inside, then he believes the cause must be external, as the work of a person. So, to sustain the rift with this level of mana of darkness, he believes it must be an underworld lord, or even an imperial lich. However, if such a being were truly in that place, half of humanity on Earth would have already been transformed into undead, and because of that, there is no way to be certain. And if it truly is an external problem, it cannot be resolved simply by closing that rift. He clenches his fist and strikes the core with a punch that causes it to crack and shatter completely. Dojun, after completing the mission, says that he needs to find out what is going on. Back at the Brazilian Heroes Association, the president reads the report and finds it unbelievable. After all, on one side, they sent allies from 3 nations, and only one rank S hero returned alive. On the other side, one team closed the rift and everyone returned alive. The staff member reports that there is urgent news coming in from all regions and that most teams failed to close their rifts. The president says he will organize all the information and issue a new report soon, but finds it strange since it was an unexpected result, even though there was a rank S hero at each rift, and the only team that succeeded was the one from Korea, led by Juyeon. The staff member says it is difficult to even call it a Korean team. The president does not understand what he means and wonders if he missed something, since as far as he knows, it was the Korean team that was sent to Santarem, until he realizes that in fact, the rift was closed well after the team had already returned. This makes him ask how the hell it was still closed and where the heroine Juyeon is. The staff member informs him that she is almost arriving at the association, and immediately the president stands up, since they need to find her right away. As soon as Juyeon and the rest of the team exited the rift, it took them about 1 hour to reach the association. Meanwhile, Dojun closed the rift alone and entered another one. He realizes that the core is underwater and decides that it is another way to find it. After that, Joyeon meets with the president of the Brazilian Heroes Association and says that as long as it is Dojun, anything is possible. He says that he cannot believe such an absurd claim, since that would mean the MC truly closed the rift alone. He falls silent for a moment and reveals a confidential matter that in other regions, several rank S heroes have died. She says that if it were not for Dojun, she would have met the same fate. The president can no longer think clearly, as it is something hard to believe, in addition to the story of the monsters having been strengthened by this so-called mana of darkness, along with the surreal power capable of surpassing a rank S. Amid this confusion, he asks if she is saying that Dojun managed to surpass all possible levels. She simply nods in confirmation. The president then mentions that there are reports that several other rifts were closed in the south minutes ago. She says that they are probably rifts that were not affected by the mana of darkness, but even so, they must not lower their guard, since the level of danger is much higher than they had imagined. The president takes his phone in hand and asks if by any chance the color of the rift entrance was different. She replies that yes, since at the moment, that is the only way to confirm it. Then, immediately, he contacts everyone, ordering them to check the entrances of all the rifts in Brazil. With everything resolved, Juyeon gets up and, after walking for a while, calls the president of the Korean Association and comments about the mana of darkness and whether there has been any change in Korea. In addition, she says that she did not see any reports with changes and assures that she will continue to keep an eye on it. After hanging up, she imagines that even with several rank S heroes, it is very difficult to deal with many monsters strengthened by this mana. The president thinks the same, since if by any chance the boss of a rift is also strengthened in this way, they will have an even bigger problem, and the two conclude that they need to prepare as much as possible. Returning to the MC, he imagines that in rivers, lakes, and islands, there are many zones with that type of territory. The problem is that humans do not breathe underwater, but there are some heroes with special abilities for this specific territory. One example is the hero from New Zealand, Ivan Rupert, the aquatic rank S hero. This guy is very famous, especially because he managed to solve the problem of aquatic pollution throughout the world, and he achieved this thanks to the ability to breathe underwater. The MC begins to submerge and soon feels the mana of darkness at the bottom of the river. He then starts swimming, and upon seeing a darkness, deduces that it is because of the mana. He continues approaching and decides to suppress the shock. As he gets closer, he begins to increase his resistance until he finally reaches the ground. A monster was already at the bottom and immediately swims toward him. He considers whether it might be an Arachon, and it even appears to be strengthened by the mana of darkness. He gathers energy in his body and blows up the monster that tried to wrap itself around his body. The MC thinks this is a mess, and when he looks to the side, he sees more fish approaching, and they begin to devour the parts of the Arachon piece by piece. Dojin knows that if Ivan Rupert were in that place, he would definitely be shocked by what he would witness. He knows that he needs to move his body freely while keeping his feet firmly on the ground, punching the monsters at the highest possible speed. Even so, the monsters do not stop appearing, and he finds himself completely surrounded. He reflects that he needs to put an end to all of them at once, and swims away at high speed until something catches his attention, since he has finally found his target. He feels happy, since it was a surprise to find the Acromos there, because in the world he lived in, those who became mere legends had something in common, which was hunting Acromos when they were still unknown. He knows that he cannot miss this golden chance. The monster begins to act strangely, and a dimensional portal appears in its mouth. The MC immediately takes action, because he knows that the Acromos has no natural enemy, and that no matter the opponent, they create a subspace that engulfs the enemy. This power becomes stronger and stronger, and the MC feels this pressure until he prepares himself and cuts the subspace that was there engulfing everything. The power keeps growing stronger, and Dojun keeps gathering more and more energy. He imagines that it would be easier to be beaten to death, but then he would not be able to obtain the subspace. He knows that he needs to endure by using mana to absorb everything, and releases an incredible power that immediately decimates the fish around him. However, he realizes that in that way, he will continue to be pressured, so by gathering more energy, he continues absorbing with all his strength, since he knows that he needs to absorb the mana of darkness from the water, and at the same time release his own. He continues doing this until his nose starts bleeding. He wonders if what he is doing is too much for the body he currently has, and as he is almost being defeated, he decides to go all in, risking everything at once. Time passes, and an explosion happens in the river, and both leap out of the water. The MC celebrates, since he finally obtained it, because he is holding the subspace of Kremos in his hands. He falls back into the water, and everything becomes silent. Sometime later, already on the riverbank, he finally wakes up next to several ducks and suddenly sneezes, making the birds fly away. He tries to process what happened and imagines that he fainted. Then, as he gets up, he decides to check how his mana is, and realizes that it has become much larger compared to the last time. In addition, there is another interesting thing, because now he possesses the subspace and thinks that it was definitely the best thing he has obtained so far. He throws his backpack away to store it in his new dimension, and stretches after this achievement, concluding that there is nothing else to do in that rift, so he will close it and return to the Brazilian Association. After some time at the Korean Heroes Association, Ingu says that although it is not the official announcement, they are saying that the deaths of the heroes are real. The association president laments it, since they lost talents they could not afford to lose. The Four Eyes says that this happened in only a few rift zones. Taiwan comments that he heard that Dojun managed to close some rifts, and even thinks the boy is more incredible than he expected. Ingu takes the opportunity to comment that since it has been a widely discussed topic since the incident with Ryoma Takashi, the impact will be great because of this. Since in the incident in the United Kingdom, Jo Yeon received a lot of attention, and he is honestly happy to know that the heroes of Korea are on everyone's lips at the moment. He then says that they did not find abnormal signs in the rifts in Brazil, and suspects that it was a unique event. The president orders them not to jump to conclusions too quickly, and not to stop checking for even a second. He then says that he is worried about Dojun since the president of Brazil, Daniel Lopes, is a manipulative person, so while the MC is there, he may end up being exploited. However, he is surprised to hear the Four Eyes say that he disagrees, since the president of the Brazilian Heroes Association is too shocked to do anything. That said, Taiwan bursts into laughter, since it makes sense, and this makes Dojun even more impressive. At this moment, Daniel is sweating cold and looks at the MC, asking if perhaps this is not too big a demand for him. Dojun asks what he means by that and stands up, since in that case there is nothing more to say. As he is leaving, the president shouts, calling him back, and asks him to consider the security of Brazil, since this is his duty as an S-rank hero. The MC, with his no-nonsense face, says that he closed 2 rifts alone and therefore has no obligation to do anything besides wanting to know why they do not send the Brazilian heroes to do something if they are complaining. He then asks not to take it the wrong way, since the security of Brazil has nothing to do with him, and also questions whether, if these rifts opened in Korea, they would send the heroes of Brazil to help. The president's assistant says that the situation is very serious, since all zones within a radius of 500 kilometers of Santarém are inaccessible. Daniel reinforces that there is nothing they can do and, with his head down, says that if something happens again, it will be the end of them. All 3 observe this performance in order to persuade him. Then, Jo-yeon intervenes, commenting that if that is the case, the answer is simple and, with a beautiful smile, says that they just need to make a request to Dojun, since compared to the security of Brazil, it is nothing at all. The 2 see little room to escape and, looking at the MC, ask him please to come back, since they will pay $50 million for each zone closed. Dojun finds this interesting, since they could have said that before, and orders them to first send $100 million for the 2 rifts he closed alone that day. Jo-yeon worries that if the public finds out about this, they could criticize him for greed, but she highly doubts that the Brazilian Association would leak something like that. But when she looks to the side, she sees the indifferent face of the MC, and that makes her happy, since she knows that, in any case, he does not care what others think of him. Dojun, after thinking it through, imagines the one responsible for his reincarnation, and that the money he will obtain will be enough to get the safest house in the world, and asks if he is satisfied, since he kept his promise. The Brazilian government was reluctant about the MC's request, but with no other alternative, they could only complain about it. At the same time, a confidentiality contract was signed so that public opinion would not worsen. Some heroes are badly injured, while others unfortunately lost their lives on this mission. The family members do not hide their pain, and the MC remains firm, offering his condolences. After that, at the hotel, Inju asks whether they will go to the next zone together, but the MC does not answer, and she does not know what he is thinking so deeply about. He comments that he was wondering what would be more profitable, since while he closes one zone, the guild would move to the next entrance. She reflects on this, and asks if they would then close the zone together. He realizes that she understands things quickly, and she comments that, from what she understood, while they finish closing one zone, he would go after another. He answers yes, since that way they could close 3 zones in a day, and assures that if they help, he will share a percentage of the profits. Everyone gets excited about this. He approaches Jo-yeon and asks her not to overdo it until he arrives, since she should focus on protecting the guild members. She gets embarrassed by this closeness and replies that she will do so. Everyone around starts whispering that a rank S is blushing next to the MC and that they are probably dating. Sometime later, the MC goes adventuring again, until he looks to the side and notices a monster trying to attack. He finds it interesting to have found a fake Cyclops and decides not to waste time counterattacking, thinking it is interesting because he will make good money from it. He lands a punch, but the Cyclops remains intact. The MC is surprised to see that the monster has a very tough body, but that only makes him more excited since he can test his new technique. The Cyclops advances, but Dojun does the same and even lands a kick that leaves the monster dazed, and because of that, it screams, entering a state of fury, and the MC takes advantage of the opportunity and uses his subspace, which swallows the monster's attack and makes it appear above its head, hitting its own head with the attack. Dojun realizes that this ability is not very good to use in combat, since it consumes a lot of mana. After some time, the Southern Rift Zone was closed. The president of the Brazilian Association is monitoring everything from headquarters and reflects that it took 8 hours to close the rift and that it would definitely be a problem for them. Because of this, he orders the transfer to be made, and another $50 million are transferred to Dojun. The assistant comments that if this continues, they will lose billions of dollars in just a few days. Daniel replies that they cannot let the MC take everything. The boy does not quite understand what he means, and asks if, by any chance, it is to delay the payment. The president calls him an idiot, since if they do that, Dojun will simply stop closing the portals and orders that all Rank A and Rank S heroes be summoned, since they will form a special team in opposition to him. In addition, the reward for this team will be $10 million, and they are to help them as much as possible by closing the rifts faster than Dojun. He wants to pay to see who will close the rifts faster. Dojun versus all the heroes of a nation. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Daniel Lopez sends a text message to someone. It was to Young Pyo, who upon seeing who the message is from, imagines that the person has finally made a decision. His assistant says that there are rumors about Rank S heroes dying, and that because of these rumors, people are tense. The hero says that, considering the number of people, 10 million is little, but since it will be easy, it is not bad. He also reads that it will be only one team all at once, and this irritates him, since if he ends up on the same team as Dojun, he believes it will be annoying. His assistant says that the MC is not on the list, and the hero checks more carefully and realizes that not even Juyeon and Inju are on it, and he begins to worry, without understanding what the hell is going on. Back in Brazil, the MC receives the transfer, and Juyeon asks if the association is transferring correctly. He replies yes, and she explains that apparently the government got irritated with the agreement and gathered heroes from all nations. He finds this interesting and says that indeed they are not idiots to act that way. She says that apparently he is being too generous since, in her own view, the association is acting in bad faith. The MC can only think that at least he secured the money he promised to the real Dojun, and nothing else matters. And he knows that from that moment on, he only needs one thing. Since the Brazilian Association wanted a competition, both teams accelerated their results. The government is going all out, monitoring everything. Zone AO35 was closed at 15 hours by Dojun together with the Flower Guild. Zone CO12 was closed at 17 hours and 10 minutes by the Union of Heroes. 1 Rank S hero and 5 Rank A heroes suffered minor injuries, and 2 Rank A heroes are in critical condition. Shortly after, Zone AO37 was closed at 21 hours and 50 minutes. And this time it was closed alone by the MC. Several days passed, and the association was already exhausted from working so much. One of them offers an energy drink since his friend has not slept at all. Sales contaminated by the mana of darkness were quickly shut down, but this means no one is keeping an eye on the other rift zones. The areas are being monitored only by agents 24 hours a day. No one knows what might happen, so they are working non-stop. They keep their eyes on the map at all times, and the rifts are disappearing far too quickly, leaving everyone simply surprised. Dojun and the heroes had no choice but to hurry. After some time, Zone BO41 was closed and everyone at the association celebrates, since it finally ended, and the assistant rushes to the president to report that all zones within a radius of 500 kilometers of Santarem have been closed. Daniel breathes a sigh of relief, as they apparently have left the state of emergency. The boy replies that yes, and they also confirmed that all rifts with the mana of darkness were closed. The president says it was an excellent job, but before the assistant leaves, he mentions that there are still a few remaining rifts. However, one day would be enough to close them, and he wants to hold a party in honor of the heroes and the agents who worked hard. That night, the buffet is prepared and all the heroes are gathered with plenty of music. The MC's group arrives at the party and calls the president since they need to greet him. Daniel asks why, and Inju explains that they are planning to return to their country. He looks directly at the MC and says that there are still some remaining rifts and asks whether they should not finish the operation first. She explains that her team was assigned only to Santarem, and that is why they are leaving. The president says it does not have to be that way, and at least asks that they let Dojun stay. She does not like this at all, since it is clear that his interest is in Dojun and not in her guild, and so she turns and asks what he wants to do. Daniel wastes no time and calls him to discuss the matter in private, and the two leave so they can talk. Anju teases her friend, saying that she does not want to say goodbye to him, and Jo Yeon, embarrassed, replies that it is nothing like that. Daniel continues talking with Dojun until the MC moves away, and they soon deduce that apparently he will indeed be leaving to return to Korea until they see him going to talk to Gloria. Inju tells her to go over there quickly since she needs to see what kind of conversation the two are having. Zhao Yan says it is normal for him to talk to other people at the party, but the captain calls her an idiot since he is talking to a beautiful woman and says that if she does not want to lose him, she should go right away. She starts thinking about it, and after looking closely at the MC, imagines what kind of opportunity she might have by going to talk to him. She also imagines things like living together and so on. At that moment, Gloria steps away, saying that she will wait for his answer since he can call whenever he wants, and Zhao Yan realizes that the girl is definitely beautiful. Even though Dojun did not show any reaction, she does not know if she is jealous or what the hell she is thinking. The MC goes back to Gloria and says that he would like to ask a favor since he would like to participate in the golden market and therefore wants to receive an invitation. Zhou Yan hears this and knows that this market is a global event that happens every year in Las Vegas and does not understand what he would do in a place like that. Gloria laughs and says she agrees, but with one condition, that he must go to her house 1 week before the golden market opens. Zhou Yan simply cannot believe what she just heard and already imagines the woman trying to seduce him. She keeps wondering whether the MC will accept. Everyone falls silent for a moment, and Gloria notices the presence of the rank S and therefore says that he can respond whenever he wants. But since she has high expectations for him, she decided to send the invitation right at that moment. He looks at the invitation and knows that the VIP card is better than a common invitation. At that moment, someone approaches saying that the view is pleasant. It is Young Pyo, saying that it is a beautiful sight to see the most beautiful women from Korea and the United States together. In addition, he tells Dojun that he is also well-dressed and still accompanied by 2 beautiful women, as if he had the world in his hands. The two stare at each other for a moment, and Jo Yeon becomes worried, since the guy must be planning something. Young Pyo laughs, drawing the attention of everyone present, and asks them not to worry, since he is not trying to do anything because he only wanted to introduce a friend to them, and asks if everyone already knows this person. This draws everyone's attention, since it is the Yakuza member, Takashi. Jo Yeon cannot believe that the guy has already been discharged, and not even the president believes it, since he did not invite him precisely to avoid him meeting the MC, who beat him up. Dojun looks directly at Takashi and comments that, apparently, the body is healed. He replies that yes, and that thanks to this, he gained valuable experience. Dojun replies that he is happy if it was good. The president approaches, saying that he is glad to see him better, and explains that he did not invite him because he thought he would be overwhelmed. Then he mentions that he has a very comfortable sofa and takes him outside the party. Young Pyo realizes that the president is not foolish, since he would not ruin an event that he prepared with such caution. Even so, he runs to stand in front of the two and comments that, in fact, he should rest, since the injuries that Dojun caused must still hurt. Takashi freezes upon hearing this, and the rank S resumes provoking him, asking why he did not receive an apology from the MC, since no matter what happened, an apology is always good. This makes the guy increasingly furious, and everyone around begins to worry about the trouble this could cause. However, the MC draws Takashi's attention and, mocking him, comments that the Yakuzas are a bunch of scum. Young Pyo cannot believe what he heard, nor can Gloria and Jo Yeon. Takashi then turns around furiously and asks what he said. Takashi answers that obviously, the members of the gang are a bunch of scum. Young Pyo cannot believe what he is hearing. Dojin then says that, in fact, they are nothing but useless trash to society, and Takashi confirms it. Zhao Yan becomes worried, since she feels as if she has seen this before. On the other hand, Young Pyo calls the guy's attention, wanting to know what he is doing by criticizing his own group. However, Takashi turns around with a look of fury that scares even Young Pyo. In addition, he shows his phone and plays the recording he has. The recording was of Young Pyo, in which he ordered that someone needed to die in the Brazilian Rift, and that this person who should die was Do-jun. Everyone is shocked upon hearing this recording. Continuing further, Young Pyo ordered that they finish off the MC once and for all, and even concluded that, in the end, they could enjoy themselves with some girls, starting with Gloria and then perhaps Zhao Yeon, since she seemed to be a virgin. Young Pyo cannot believe it, and the MC becomes extremely excited since he did not expect his eye to be so effective, and guarantees that he picked a fight with the wrong guy, because from that moment on, he will slowly torment him until he wishes for death. Young Pyo feels the pressure of everyone judging him at that exact moment, but even so, he bursts into laughter and shouts that, once again, the Yakuza's ruined everything. Then, he stands face to face with Takashi and knows that if the conversation continues, it will be worse. So with a single movement, he plunges his hand into the guy's heart, taking his life instantly. Then he begins to flee at full speed. The president shouts for all the security guards to pursue him, and immediately a chase begins. Jo-yeon shouts to Dojun that they must go after him, but soon becomes frightened since the MC is indifferent and could even have prevented the death that occurred, and she does not understand why he did nothing. He, however, only smiles at what happened. That was a shocking night. The incident spread around the world rapidly, and the shock in Korea and Japan was unimaginable. Both governments and hero associations avoided public opinion, and the media constantly reported the actions of young Pyo and Takashi. Hiju becomes extremely furious when seeing this news, since her plans are never working out. She smashes the television and everything around her. The director only remains silent, listening from outside, until she lets out a scream calling him. When he enters, he sees the destruction in the room, and she asks what happened to young Pyo. He replies that Interpol and the World Hero Alliance are after him, and that there is no news on whether he has been caught or not. Hiju becomes even more irritated, in addition to wishing that the damn rank S would just die already. She also asks whether the loose ends have been taken care of. He replies that they have, since all appropriate measures were taken. All accounts, all contacts they had, and even the camera footage were removed. He also asks whether there is anything bothering her. She throws the phone into his hand, and the director does not understand what it means. Hae-ju explains that it is her personal phone and that only her family knows that number, but, worried, asks him to read the last message. He decides to read it, and the unknown number is demanding cooperation, stating that if she refuses, the evidence will be leaked, and also guaranteeing that it will find her again. He asks whether it might be from young Pyo, and does not know what he wants with this cooperation. She screams that it does not matter, and that just being connected to him is already a huge problem, and, throwing a jar at the man, orders him to leave the room, saying they are useless. The director leaves the room, knowing that he could be screwed and that he even needs to find a way to survive. But when he opens the door, he runs straight into a wall. This is Gyeong-chul, executive of Group T and Hee-ju's father. The director is startled by that expression and runs away apologizing. The woman is startled when she sees him and, in the same instant, receives a punch to the mouth that leaves her confused on the floor. Her father asks whether she thinks he looks like some useless old man, and delivers another punch to her mouth. Then he calls her an idiot for thinking he would not find out that she paid young Pyo to kill Dojun. He is actually excited to learn that his own blood is a rank S hero, and because of that, he very much wants to bring Dojun back home. His daughter is shocked by this, but he states that he does not like how Group P became arrogant because of Seung-ho, yet the heavens are still supporting them, and therefore he needs to know how to deal with the mess she made. She, with little she can do, simply remains silent to avoid getting beaten more. While things around young Pyo become increasingly chaotic, the MC's group is returning to Korea. He thinks it was a good expedition since he obtained a lot of money and raw materials. At this moment, Jo-yeon approaches and says she is curious about something and asks whether he deliberately let the guy escape. The MC replies that he did, since that way they will move on to the next stage. After some time in Seoul, South Korea, Aun-young is happily eating a snack, and the MC asks whether it is good. He feels happy seeing her like that, but soon his expression changes, since after returning to reunite with his family, he was shocked to find that his grandmother's health had worsened. He does not understand why they did not go to the hospital or even contact him. His sister, embarrassed, asks him not to be like that, saying it was because of the money he earns risking his life and that she did not want to waste it. He whispers in his grandmother's ear and tells her that going to the hospital when one is sick is not a waste. In addition, he earned a fortune in Brazil, so there is no need to worry. His grandmother, in tears, is happy to hear that. With this outcome, the MC took his grandmother to the best hospital in Korea and visited her every day together with his sister, so eating hamburgers became their routine. After a few days in Gasan at the Hero Complex, Chil-kwan says that it is the first time he has seen a blue crocodile heart in such good condition, and therefore states that he will make a better sword than he had imagined. The MC asks how long it will take to be ready, and he replies that probably 3 weeks, and that he will even start immediately. Dojun says that besides the sword, there is also one more thing he would like to ask for, and asks if that is okay. He replies that yes, since he can ask for anything. Dojun takes out a bag and, realizing that the blacksmith has already figured out what it is, says that they are threads and sacks from the salivary glands of a Valkyra. He is surprised by the quality of the item and asks if, by any chance, he wants him to make some kind of armor. The MC says no, since he is actually thinking of something for his younger sister. The blacksmith is confused by this and says that armor made with Valkyra materials has enormous defensive power and that heroes all over the world would line up to obtain such armor. And so, he asks if the girl is also a heroine. He shows her photo and says that she is a cute girl. The blacksmith carefully observes the photo since she is very young, and the MC asks if there is any problem. He says more or less, since children grow too fast, and even if it is made at that moment, it might not fit in a few years. Dojun smiles, since he was expecting something like that, and shows a liquid he obtained. He also explains that it is essence from a tialapu, and that if it is combined with the fabric, the elasticity is increased tenfold. Chilquan asks if he is serious, since as far as he knows, Tailapu is a very common plant-type monster. The MC replies that yes, and says that he is eager for his work. The blacksmith admits that he is surprised, since just like the Cyclops blood he brought, last time he would like to know how he knows all these things. He smiles and says it is because this is his second life. After that, in the city, a man walks calmly. This is Sungwook, Secretary General of the former Group S, currently working as a freelancer. He arrives at a staircase and goes down to Cafe Paraiso. After entering, he spots the person inside and feels pleased, since having a cafe in a basement means the owner is someone shrewd, and because of that, it is great for meeting someone in secret. After approaching the person, he hands over his card, also introducing himself as the Secretary General of Group S. Then the MC turns around, also introducing himself. Sungwook sits down and says that everyone has been talking about the MC in recent days, and therefore he cannot imagine what an important person would want with someone ordinary. Dojin explains that Jo-yeon spoke about him and said that he helps rich people and heroes in secret regardless of what they want. The Four Eyes confirms it, but emphasizes that he does anything as long as he does not cross the line with the law. The MC then says that he wants to build a house, which leaves the man confused, since in that case he should have talked to a real estate agency, unless it is an extraordinary house. Dojun decides to get straight to the point and says that he wants the safest house in the world. He explains that he has a preference for Seoul and that his budget is 500 billion won. Sungwook spits out all the tea he was drinking, and the MC, with tea on his face, asks if this is perhaps the first time he has worked with that amount. The man apologizes for spitting the tea, and after cleaning everything, asks if he is not actually thinking about building a castle with that value. He finds the idea interesting, since building a castle would be a good idea, so he changes his budget to 1 trillion. The man simply cannot believe the absurdity he is hearing, and decides to speak seriously, asking if the MC knows what the safest house in Korea is at that moment. He guesses that it is probably the house of the president of Group S, and Sungwook confirms it, revealing that the amount spent on that house was 110 billion won, and that the construction costs were 80 billion. Then, judging by the proposed budget, he believes that the house would be even more incredible. However, the Gangnam region is out of the question, since it will not be possible to buy land there, because not a single rift has appeared in Gangnam so far, and this situation has never declined, and the place continues to appreciate. Therefore, he proposes that they can build the best house, but not in the safest area. The MC takes a sip of his tea and replies that the safest place is not Gangnam. The man is surprised to hear this, and Dojin explains that the fact that Gangnam is considered the safest place is because people chose to believe that. The secretary asks what he means by that, and the MC knows that the claim that Gangnam is a safe place is an illusion created by the media. The fact that nothing happened in that place is just a coincidence. Just like in the ruined world where he lived, rifts appeared everywhere. So he asks Four Eyes if he has any area in mind, and says that he will buy somewhere in the Guro district. Sungwook asks if he is serious, because he knows that it has been a few years since Guro had a rift. However, not very far from that place, a rift appeared recently. The MC is aware of it since it was exactly the rift he eliminated. The secretary asks if there is any special reason for choosing the Guro region, and he simply replies that it is because it is close. After that, in a nearby rift, a dinosaur was walking calmly until it gets startled, and the MC appears cutting it in half. He observes his new sword and admits that it ended up better than he expected. Moments earlier, the blacksmith finished the job and confidently said that it is definitely his greatest masterpiece in life. In addition, he said that he does not need money, since he only used the masterpieces he received and therefore does not want payment. However, the MC transferred it anyway, and he says that he took the satisfaction since it cannot be converted into money until he gets startled upon realizing that he received nothing less than 1 billion for a single service. Dojun carries out a massacre with his new sword and knows that it is a sword easily worth hundreds of billions, since thanks to it, his hunts became much easier. After his meeting with Sungwook to decide where he would build his house, he spent the following weeks hunting rifts. To buy a 3-kilometer plot of land in Guro, he would need at least 500 billion, and perhaps that still would not be enough because of the landowners. While Sungwook suggested reducing the land, the MC replied that he would make more and more money. At night, he returns with his sister, who says she is happy because her grandmother will be discharged in a few days. However, she laments that her brother is always busy, and he says that he indeed is a little. Eun-young asks him not to visit every day, since he has a little sister to do that. He gets emotional hearing those words, until a car stops in front of him asking if he happens to be Dojun. He does not understand what it is about, and the man says that the executive Gyeon Cheol sent them, and therefore asks him to please get into the car since they were instructed to make him as comfortable as possible. The MC takes a deep breath, puts his sister on the ground, and asks her to close her eyes for a bit. Then, he starts walking and delivers a powerful kick into the car, destroying every centimeter of the vehicle. The man panics because he does not know what to do, and Dojun, furious, makes it clear that they are never to appear in front of him again. The man runs away in desperation, and the MC tries to calm his sister by saying that he only punished a bad guy who tried to separate them. She smiles and says that she will punish anyone who tries to separate them. He finds that funny, picks her up again, and places her on his shoulders so they can leave. He also thinks that apparently he is proceeding through the person who was introduced. Elsewhere, Ju-yeon is having dinner with Inju, and the leader asks if Dojun is really buying a house in Guro. The rank S replies that yes, and that he is even managing it, thanks to a person she introduced. Inju asks if it is serious and also wants to know what she will do. She does not understand that question, and the leader tells her to stop being stupid since she should become the MC's neighbor. The guild leader says that Gloria may want to get even closer to Dojun, since that would make things more fun between the two of them. Jo-yeon panics at this possibility since she knows it is possible, and the girl says again that if the MC really moves, he will probably build a new house, so this should not happen in less than 2 years. The rank S becomes thoughtful about this since she is seriously considering moving to a house near Dojun. Inju notices that her friend is very tense thinking about it, but warns that it was not a joke since she was not talking about the kind of intention she is thinking. Zhao Yeon is surprised hearing this, and the guild leader says that she became certain of something after the trip to Brazil, since they need at all costs to get the MC for themselves, and she would even do anything to get her hands on that luxury car. Ju-yeon asks if the MC has somehow turned into a luxury car now, and she comments that there is no denying it. After all, Dojun is at a completely different level from the other rank S, and since they brought up the subject, she also thinks it would be interesting to create a guild office near his house. Since those were good ideas, the two of them toast to celebrate. Meanwhile, at the Heroes Association, the president tells the MC that he alone closed 9 rifts in 2 weeks. And besides the enormous amount they paid, he also wanted to see him personally. He confesses that he wants to hear from his own mouth whether he is afraid that Korea might end up in the same situation as Brazil. Dojun sees the gigantic amount of 45 billion won that he received and says that for now, everything will be fine. Taiwan does not quite understand what this "for now" means and asks if he is that obsessed with hunting and closing the rifts. The MC smiles and says that he is just doing his job for money since he wants to build a house. The the president simply cannot believe such nonsense. Anyway, Do-jun says that he would like to ask something, and the two continue talking. From that day on, the lands around the MC began to be rapidly bought, starting with Juyeon. The same goes for the president of the association. Other heroes and entrepreneurs jumped headfirst into it. The investors expected nothing less from such an incredible human being, since if everyone is investing heavily in Do-jun, it must be because it is something good. Saying that, he shouts to buy as much land as possible around him. More and more rumors began until before they realized it, the lands in the Guro district skyrocketed. However, the MC had already secured more than 10,000 meters of land. He looks at the entire layout of the place, and the secretary asks if that is everything, but admits that he does not understand since from what he saw, the house has less than 500 square meters on a plot of more than 10,000 meters, and therefore wants to know what he will do with the remaining space. Do-jun, smiling, says that this space will be used to keep the house safe. He becomes intrigued by this since apparently he wants to build a wall like the one of a castle. He says that it is not something difficult and they could start immediately, but they would first need to check the real estate agencies in the district to do that and choose one. The MC says that President Taiwan will take care of it. The secretary cannot believe such a thing since he does not understand why the president of the association himself would get involved in a construction. After that, in a rift zone, Do-jun walks calmly, and the president, talking with another person, says that he received a personal request from the MC. Hongyi, shocked, asks if it is true that he asked to tame monsters. The president laughs and says that he was also surprised when he heard that, since he had never heard in the history of humanity of someone taming a monster, and basically Do-jun's request was permission to raise monsters on his own land. However, the biggest surprise does not stop there, since the most surprising thing is that the monster he plans to tame is none other than the dragon Caesarion. The MC, standing before the monster, says he will go easy and is soon attacked by the monster's tail, followed by a laser shot coming from its mouth. 1 hour after this clash, the dragon is completely exhausted, barely able to stand. The MC gently pats the monster and asks it to take care of itself since he will return later, and leaves while singing a song, while Caesarion, with not much else to do, continues lying down sleeping. After that, during the early morning, Do-jun calls Jo-yeon, and half asleep, she answers, asking what he wants. The MC asks if she was sleeping since he wanted to ask if it is possible to buy magic stone powder. She gets up and, even without understanding who the hell would grind such a precious stone to the point of turning it into powder, answers that she heard that turning magic stones into powder causes a loss of energy and becomes curious to know why he suddenly wanted to know that. He, standing before a portal, says that he needs it, but she, curious, asks how he would use it. Do-jun tells her to forget it, since he will get it himself. She does not understand what just happened since the day barely started and he was talking nonsense. The MC knows that the most basic thing to make a house safe are the walls, in addition to the guards who protect the house inside the walls, because he has decided to bring Caesarion when the construction is almost finished. Thus, he will finally create a device capable of absorbing external shocks, such as earthquakes. He finds a Cyclops inside the rift, and this makes him excited since he needed magic stone powder to make the device. He keeps dodging the attacks until he jumps onto the monster's back. He uses his dimensional space to grab his dagger and begins channeling energy to use his Bandian sword technique. He uses the Vortex of Chaos, which fires countless fire slashes. It is a spiral ability that causes destruction to everything it touches. The monster can only watch this power heading toward it, but defending against it is another story since its body is cut into pieces as if it were nothing. Do-jun picks up the magic stone and, just by squeezing it with his hand, completely destroys it and collects the powder that fell from the shattered stone. He looks at this powder and imagines that the rifts are also caused by external shocks and wonders if this might suppress the generation of rifts, because if he is right, this will be something very good. While Do-jun was busy going back and forth through the rifts and also visiting his grandmother, a piece of news created a revolution among the public since he was the grandson of the president of Group TI. Gyeong-chul sees this in the news and finds it incredible since his grandson has become extremely powerful, but he believes that with the rumor spreading, everyone will come to know Do-jun only as his grandson. In fact, people are commenting that they knew something was wrong since a simple kid became rank S out of nowhere, and now they are sure that it was thanks to the absurd money of Group T since he basically was born in a diamond cradle. They also have no idea why he is holding a conference. The MC prepares himself and says that he was born outside of his father's marriage and was abandoned when he was still a child. These words leave absolutely everyone in shock. He slowly explains how he lived, speaking clearly and precisely to the cameras. Even if people doubted his words, posts about Dojun's school days appeared, and there were even interviews at his past jobs, and the public's sympathy grew more and more each day. As a result, Group T's stocks, which had been rising rapidly until the day of the conference, instantly dropped by 30%, leaving the old man in shock. The real Dojun had asked only that his sister and grandmother be allowed to live safely, and the MC, by annihilating the monsters, is determined to make that happen since it is his ultimate goal. He reflects in the middle of the night that he dealt with the Creeds a long time ago, and, after suffering a few counterattacks, Group T fell silent, and although young Pio is still standing, he will eventually fall into the trap. Now, he is only focused on an unexpected rift and will defend it as soon as the house is ready. The construction chief reports that, as requested, they built the outer wall as a priority, and the house is also almost finished. The MC asks when it will be ready since he wanted it to be as fast as possible. The guy thinks that is absurd since it is the largest residence of the greatest hero of all, and therefore, not even a single screw could be forgotten. But the MC says he will pay double for the construction, and the guy, quickly changing his mind, says it will be finished in 10 days. He likes hearing that and warns that no one should enter there that night. He walks for a while and decides that it is time to grind all the magic stones he obtained. He takes all of them from his magic circle and, using his power, fires each one into a point on the ground. They begin to emit a strong glow, and the magic circle is finally completed. Since they are all high-level magic stones, the preparation was easy. He decides to suppress any variable with magic stone powder, and since the fortress is ready, he only needs to choose a guardian. Meanwhile, in a parking lot, Hiju shouts to kill Dojun already since she gave all the money that was needed. And even so, it still has not happened, and she cannot stand waiting anymore. Young Pio, hearing all of this, imagines that the woman was rejected by her parents and her father-in-law, and apparently is venting her anger on him. So he asks if she really wanted that, since he is holding himself back from burying everyone who left him like this, and is focusing solely on Dojun. She, still irritated, asks why he is standing still, and if he is perhaps afraid of him. He tells her to shut the hell up, and asks if the idiot thinks an S-rank fight is a child's game. He makes it clear that to finish this easily, they would have to kidnap the MC's grandmother or sister to use them. But obviously, if Dojun discovered something like that, he would never leave his family's side. Hiju becomes terrified by the S-rank's expression, since he is even talking about exterminating an entire family. Young Pio does not hide his anger when she says she is afraid and grabs her by the neck, making it clear that there is no one he cannot kill, since he is sure that Dojun will not be able to protect his family forever, and at some point, he will lower his guard. With that said, he asks if she understood well, since the only certainty he has in life is that he will kill Dojun no matter what it costs. Meanwhile, in another rift, the MC observes that in that place there is no boss, only Death Knights. He sees 3 of them at the entrance and finds it interesting, although he knows they are not easy to kill for several reasons. They do not have a physical body and do not feel pain, so unless he precisely cuts the soul core, they will not die. In addition, these beings retain the swordsmanship they learned when they were human, and each knight fights in a different way. So he thinks it would be rude if he fought empty-handed against these knights. Without wasting time, he attacks with everything he has, just as the knights do not hold back either. The MC enjoys this battle since for as long as he can remember, he has always been holding a sword, and the fight continues with him attacking and the knight counterattacking, but after a long battle, all 3 of them fall. He says he is disappointed, because he thought at least one would remain standing until a knight approaches, but this one is completely different from the others. The MC likes seeing this, since he was sure that at least one elite knight would appear. The monster attacks fiercely, and the 2 begin exchanging sword blows at an absurd speed, since, as he thought, that knight is quite different. The monster prepares his attack, but it is successfully defended, and, leaving no opening, the MC finishes the fight with a single, precise strike that makes the monster fall to his knees on the ground. With this outcome, Dojun points his sword and orders the knight to become his guard. The elite guards stand in front of him, and he finds it interesting, since he managed to obtain 5 elite guards in 2 days, and his work was worth it. Then he uses his subspace and pulls the knights inside. He believes it is finally over, although he still needs a guard dog. For that reason, he returns to the caves and stands before Kassarian. The dragon recognizes that he is the same hero as before and orders him to leave his nest, but he replies that he is not here to play around anymore and only asks him to follow. Kassarian calls him arrogant, since humans are no different from insects. However, Dojun warns that he will die, and immediately he changes his opinion and asks where they are going. After all, in front of him, he realizes that there is a completely different human, since he is ridiculously strong. They fly out of the cave and the MC orders him to head toward the rift, since they need to get out first. Kassarian questions whether he really wants to go outside his nest, and he, with his frightening gaze, tells him to move already, and they simply continue their journey. Outside, people are walking calmly through the city until they get scared, because a monster is passing in the sky right above their heads. Dojun tells him to fly carefully so he does not hit the buildings. The dragon loses his patience, and the MC asks if he is really going to rebel. Kassarian can no longer hold himself back and shouts that he cannot stand it anymore, since he is a being on another level. This shout gives people headaches because of how powerful it was, and the dragon says again that he will prove his existence is superior, but the MC, without much patience, lands a kick that almost kills the beast and tells him to shut up because he is scaring the people. And with that, the dragon quietly accepts and continues the journey. They go to the Mariana Islands, a United States territory located in the Pacific Ocean. After arriving, Dojun gets off the dragon. This is because that place has many rift zones, and when it happens on a remote island that barely has inhabitants, it basically becomes an open sky dungeon. So, in front of so many monsters, the MC tells his new pet to have fun. The monsters charge to attack, but Kassarian locks his claws into them, and the fierce battle begins. Dojun takes the opportunity to collect the magic stones from the ground and finds it interesting, since he will be able to earn quite a lot in that place. Soon after, his house was completed. There are 3 floors above ground and 1 below, with the interior equipped with the most advanced technology. His grandmother confesses that the house looks more like a palace, but her greatest curiosity is something else, since she has no idea what the creature sleeping peacefully outside is. The MC says that he heard people raise chickens in their houses and wanted something similar. The dragon does not like being compared to a chicken at all, but he simply stays quiet. Eun-young becomes excited and asks if she can look around, and he replies that she obviously can, but asks her to go with her grandmother calmly. At that moment, he is alone with Jo-yeon, and she, terrified, says that she has been feeling a sinister aura from the ground for some time, and asks if he is creating something besides Kassarian. He asks her to relax since it is nothing serious, but inside he is surprised that she noticed his other creatures. In addition, he thanks her for taking care of his grandmother and his sister and, without hesitation, invites her to eat together on the weekend, just the 2 of them. Jo-yeon is surprised since she did not expect such an invitation and asks if by any chance he forgot something. He does not understand, and she explains that they promised to take Eun-young to the amusement park on the weekend and that the little girl is even counting the minutes for it. The MC finally remembers and says he has been so focused on hunting portals that he ended up forgetting, and he regrets it since his sister comes first. However, she suggests that he take her to the amusement park as well so that everything would be fine. With that, the day arrives and the 3 of them walk calmly through the park. People observe them and comment that both Dojun and Jo-yeon are absurdly beautiful, but they do not know who the little girl is and wonder if she might be their daughter. However, other people tell them to shut up, since, if they did not see the news, the little girl is Dojun's younger sister, and if the 3 of them are together, then it is proof that they are a couple. They go on every possible ride until after playing so much, Eun-young falls asleep since she spent all her energy. Jo-yeon is also having a lot of fun, and the MC cannot stop looking at her until she finds it strange and asks why he is staring so much. He remembers when he spoke alone with Eun-young, and she said that Jo-yeon made noodles the night before and that she likes her very much because she is caring. With those thoughts, he thanks her once again for staying by his family's side and asks her, please, to continue taking care of them from that moment on. She becomes confused since he just made the safest house in the world and still said, from now on. This makes her extremely embarrassed since it might have another meaning, and she starts imagining what it could be. They return by car, but in the middle of the way, something catches the MC's attention to the point that he shouts that he identified the bastard. Jo-yeon gets scared and asks what he is talking about. He explains that he recognized a killing intent that invaded his house and therefore needs to go ahead, but he asks her to please take care of Yoon-young. Immediately, he gets out of the car and runs at full speed, jumping from building to building. Meanwhile, at Do-jun's house, he finally reaches the top of his wall and sees Young Pyo fighting. The rank S does not understand why there are so many opponents right at the entrance and is almost killed by a single attack from Kassarian. This is his biggest doubt, since he does not understand why the hell there is a Kassarian in Do-jun's yard. The MC keeps observing from afar since, as expected, the guy waited until he and Jo-yeon were outside, and, if he were any less cowardly, he would not have fallen into this trap. He gives a signal, and all the Death Knights return to the subspace. Then the rank S becomes worried since out of nowhere, the MC suddenly appeared telling him to stop barking. This makes him extremely furious, but even so, he gets punched in the face as if it were nothing. Do-jun asks how useless he is since it was a light blow, and he still could not dodge it. Then, he lands a kick while holding back even more. Young Pyo simply cannot believe the absurd difference in power, even though both of them are rank S. The MC prepares himself, warning that he will go even easier this time, and because it is a weak punch, he manages to dodge. But at the cost of losing part of his ear. He knows it hurts his pride to admit it, but he has absolutely no chance in a direct fight, and if the MC had the intention to kill, there would be no one he could compare with, so he becomes even more determined to go after Do-jun's family. The MC knows what the elixir is about and mocks him by asking if he is thirsty. Young Pyo, after drinking it, begins to increase his power, and his arm becomes extremely larger due to the mutation he suffered. Do-jun is aware that it is the Okeanos elixir, which grants the left arm of a Titan, and it is clearly a one-time use item, so he asks if he perhaps got it on the black market, since all his money must have gone away just for that purchase. Young Pyo becomes even more irritated and, striking the ground with a blow, tells him to stop mocking him since he needs to go protect his grandmother. This attack was aimed at the MC's house, and, excited, the rank S knows that the seismic waves will destroy that house, and when Do-jun goes to save her, he will be able to escape. However, he says it is useless since he came up with a useless plan. This is because the magic stone powder that he spread across the entire ground completely absorbs the impact, and even his grandmother is very calm while getting a massage. Young Pyo becomes desperate since he is completely screwed, and the MC warns that from that moment on, he will pay with his own body for having targeted his family. He slams his face into the ground and then uses him like a ball, kicking him as if it were the final of the Libertadores. After beating him a lot, he looks to the side and notices that Ju-yeon has already returned. She, together with some guards, says that apparently the situation has already been resolved, and also asks Yoon-young not to look forward. With this outcome, Young Pyo was kept alive by a thread and handed over to the Heroes Association. As for the MC, in his dreams he meets the real Do-jun again, who thanks him for fulfilling his dream of keeping his family safe, and therefore has no more worries since he even did more than he should have, and does not know how he could repay this kindness. The MC, thinking about it, tells him not to worry since he only did his job. In the morning, Jo-yeon asks if he slept well, and he says good morning since he had a great night, and this is Do-jun's way of thanking him since even the MC found his happiness. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.